Shut up, fool! Man, I still can't get used to the red. Oh, I'm hot. Am I really loud? I gotta whisper. Oh, yeah. There we go. Turn it down. I don't know who keeps turning my mic up. Myron, is that you? What are you doing messing around with my equipment? Okay, yeah. I guess it's your equipment as well. I have never done this before, but welcome if you're new here. But I'm going to do this for the very first time. I'm going to show the stock market here. S&P 500. These are some lines I drew. I love drawing lines. Who doesn't love drawing lines? Lines are fun. This was the stock market back in February 2019. Remember what happened in early 2020? There was this like virus thing that happened. And then the stock market plummeted way down here. And then the government said, we are rescuing everyone. We're going to give piles of money to everyone for making you stay in your homes. And then the stock market went up and up and up and up. And you see like a little trend formed. These charts are useful because they show supply and demand. See, there's more buyers than sellers. And that's why the stock market goes up. Very simple, actually. And so you can draw these trend lines. But what happened in January of 2022? Something went down. The market went down. And then went back up. And look what it tested, this little line on the bottom, and then went down again, and then it kind of got close to this line at the bottom again, and then it went really down, and then it started a new trend down. Well, look at that. But this was a wider trend. When stock markets go up, they usually go up more compactly and slip more less variance. When markets go down, they go boom, up, boom, down, boom, up. It's more violent, especially this is really violent, the COVID thing. And then they started going back up here. And so I drew two more lines. Look, and I drew this line back here. See, it's a mess, I understand, but kind of not perfect, but matches these two peaks. I said to myself, oh, it's going to peak out around here. And then sure enough, it did. And now it's right in the middle of these two trend lines. What's going to happen? Who knows? Nobody knows. Only God knows, because God's omniscient. I'm not. But if it keeps going down, don't be surprised if it bounces off of 42.16, because there's a support trend line. But if it breaks through that, ooh, it could go all the way down to 34.70-ish. And if it breaks that, ooh, it could go all the way back down to here where there's support at 22.81. Now, if it goes up, it will probably peak out around here, probably just above the last high here. And then it'll probably go back down. But nobody knows for sure. But it's fun, right? It's fun looking at these patterns, and there's some really interesting things that can happen that I've noticed over the years with patterns, and most of this is just pure psychology. You think the stock market is about earnings and multiples? Well, yeah, it is sort of, but it's mostly psychology, because people look at these charts and see stuff like trend lines being broken, and so they're more likely to be cautious about buying and more quick to sell. But you also notice patterns like 50% retracement. It's bizarre how accurate it can be at times. Like, look at this here. There's like support right in here, right? What is this? This is roughly, I don't know, 4270. The high is 4810. You take that same amount of distance from top to bottom, and you go from bottom to another bottom, you get where it kind of bottomed out here, but then went back up. So if you saw this trend line broken and you just wanted to have fun and gamble, you would sell around when this trend line was broken and expect it to go down as much as it went up from that support level around here, and you'd be a buyer in here. And if you did that at today's market, you would have made a nice return over just a year. Yeah, about a year. But that's gambling. You should only invest in the stock market what you're willing to lose, or just play it long term. But you got to be careful when you play long term. Like a lot of people say, you just buy and hold, and that's a good strategy. But actually, let me bring, how far back does this go? Does it go to the, oh yeah, it does. Where's the 30s? It barely does. Yeah, let's take a look at this. Let's say you were living in the late 20s and you bought near the peak here. In what year is this? 1928. Let's say you bought at 30. And you said, I'm a buy and hold investor. So you bought in 1928 around 30 bucks for the S&P 500. And then you go, oh, I'm gonna cost, oh, it's gone down. I'm gonna buy more, buy more, buy more. Now you could have done that, or you could have got scared and sold, and then you would have just sold for a loss. But let's say you were just, I'm gonna buy and hold. So you buy once here, 30 bucks. Look how long it would take for you to make a profit. 1953, 34, 1928. That's 25 years. So if you did this when you had like cash and you're 50 years old, good chance you'd be dead before you make a profit. Interesting, right? Buy and hold is good enough for most people. Yeah, for most people, it's good to buy an index fund and just sit on it when you're very, very young. Short-term psychological, long-term fundamentals. You would hope. Now, my title is Deficits Don't Matter, Let Everyone in the U.S. and End Capitalism to Save the Planet, because that's what some people on the left would want. And I'm trying to, I care about people. I want people who disagree with me to watch my content, not just preach to the choir. So welcome if you're a left-wing, tree-hugging, granola-crunching, sandal-wearing, leftist liberal. Know that you're loved, you're special, because you need this affirmation in order. If you're a right winger, you're gonna die, and you know that, and you're okay with that, and other people are gonna die, and you're okay with that as well. I wanted to show this chart. Why deficits might matter, even though the title says that they don't matter. What month is this? Did I have the wrong month up? Yeah, this is not the most current one. Let me get the current one here. This is fiscaltreasury.gov. You can look this up for yourself. This is the current one. July of 2023. Comes out usually, I don't know, the 11th of each month. I really highly encourage, even if you hate math, I encourage you to look this up at the 11th day of each month. And then look at this number here. Where is it? Net interest. So this is how the government spends its money. In 1 month, it spent 497 billion, and this is all the stuff it spent it on. But interest, 67 billion last month. Look, that's more than the national defense. Well, who cares, Doug? Who cares? Yeah, who cares? This is for the full year, the fiscal year end, the year that the books are done. A lot of you people on the left don't know what fiscal means. It basically means the accounting of a full year. The accounting year is September to September each year. And so far, we got what, July, August, September. We got 2 months left in this fiscal year. And the total amount spent is 5.3 trillion. There's 1,000 billion in a trillion for those of you from Florida. Oh, I'm picking on the Florida people. And the total receipts is 3.7. Now, I've never been that great at math, but I know this number is bigger than this number. And so if you take this number, subtract this number, you get the deficit, 1.6 billion. Deficit means how much less you took in than you spent. Surplus is more than you've taken in than you spent. This is a record. Well, no, that's not true. It's not a record. The record is in 2020 due to COVID. But without COVID, I think this is a record. Now, I made this little chart here. Let me bring this up. I like making charts because it brings me hope, meaning, and purpose. Let's see here. Yeah, this is it. Yeah, let me show the raw data first. So I always update this as the data comes in. So the first column is the amount of interest paid, actual dollars paid in billions. And this is the federal funds rate. This is the interest rate that banks charge each other, and the Federal Reserve charges banks that borrow money from them. And that can change month to month, week to week even. And this is this column here is the 5-year average of 5-month average of this. So in July, as we just saw, 67 billion spent on interest. June was 70, 61, 62, 67. And then it really decreases. 1 month here in August, 63. But look what happens when you go down to 2019. It's in the 30s. Remember, interest rates were basically zero for a long time. Quarter point, roughly. Then I made this this little chart. This chart is really interesting to me. I made this chart. Nobody told me to make it. Nobody's actually made this chart, I don't think, in history, except for me. I don't know if that's true or not. But this is present, this is past. So to the left is more current. And the yellow line is interest rates, the federal fund rate. So in 2019, it was around 2.5%, and then it plateaued, and then went almost down to zero. And then, we had a problem called inflation, and then the Federal Reserve started raising interest rates. And right now, interest rates on the right is interest rates. It's at 5.5, I think, is the current federal fund rate. And the blue line is the 5-month average interest. So notice what happened when interest rates dropped. The amount of interest payments in raw dollars didn't really drop with it. It kind of plateaued. Why is that? Well, because we keep accumulating deficits, which makes the debt larger, and so you have to pay interest on a larger amount of debt. So it actually started even increasing, even though interest rates are zero. But then when the Federal Reserve started raising interest rates, now you see a huge increase in the amount of interest payments paid each month. And so if you were to forecast this going left into the future, even if the Federal Reserve were to drop interest rates would still climb. The interest payments would still climb. It might plateau a little bit. But I predict, you see it's at 65 billion, 5-month average monthly interest payments. That's probably going to climb. And even if interest rates go back down to zero, it's probably going to keep climbing and plateau around, my guess is 90 to 100 billion a month. You take 100 billion a month times 12, carry the 1. That's $1.2 trillion a year. $1.2 trillion a year paid for interest. Now let's bring this chart back up. 1.2 trillion a year paid in interest. Right now it's at, what's that number say? 561 billion? Oh, you can't see that, can you? Yeah, you can see it. It's going to more than double. Now, why is that a big deal? Why does that matter? Because it's going to crowd out funding for things like Social Security, health, and income. So in order to pay for that interest and still pay for these other things, you got to borrow more money, which causes more interest payments. It becomes a death spiral. So what's the solution? There is none. The Federal Reserve's stuck. They're stuck. I don't think that, because if they lower interest rates to zero, they're still going to have the problem. And plus they're going to create a new problem called at least potential for inflation to run amok again. And you can't have that, because that's basically like a tax on everyone. To me, I think there's only one solution to this problem, and it's not a good one. And we need a deep, deep depression like in the 30s. But then that causes people to die. But one could argue people are going to die no matter what. Whoa, this got dark really fast. Myron, no one's going to watch this if you're just going to tell everybody's going to die. Okay, I got to try to offer them hope. What hope do we have? To have a deep recession instead of depression? Yeah, see, here's the problem with inflation. The problem with inflation is when prices go up, if you don't have a depression or deep recession, the prices stay there. So even if you can get inflation under control, the cost of everything still is going to stay at its level, right? Most likely. Some things might go down, but some things will still go up. But overall, in order to get the price of most things to drop, you got to have a depression or a deep recession. You need disinflation, deflation. Another solution I have, and this, I'm glad if you're a Democrat, a left-winger, I'm glad you're here because you're going to love what I'm about to say. Another possible solution is not to try to control things through interest rates, but through taxation. I think taxation is very regressive. And so if you were to really tax the crap out of the wealthy, I don't know, where do you start the wealthy line? I don't know. 500,000 a year, $1 million a year, and you just take almost everything they earn. That'll definitely bring more revenue into the treasury, and it will, I think, cause a bit of a recession as well. Because especially if you start at the 500,000 level, you're taxing businesses, small businesses, who will then start laying off people which will cause unemployment to go up. And that will trigger probably a recession. Yeah, that's a problem, Cypher Hoax. They will leave. If you tax the rich too much, they'll just leave to a different country. But only the ultra-rich would do that, I think. I know people, well, I just saw Ben Shapiro is leaving California. And I think part of the reason is high taxation and just that state's going down so fast. My friend Reed is leaving California. He lives in Hollywood and used to. And just the homeless problem is just, it's just like so depressing to live there. But I want to talk about inflation. The best way, I feel like saying it this way. I feel like telling you not to trust what the government tells you about inflation, but that sounds too conspiratorial, so I won't say that. But I will say, one of the best ways to really gauge real inflation is the price of a Big Mac over time. Economists have been doing this. Like this is not just make-believe fun. This is a real thing. And if you want to see if you got inflation under control or not, check the prices of Big Macs. I think, yeah, this is the price of a Big Mac. In 1990, it was around just over $2, $2.25 for a Big Mac. And now in 2021, it's like $5.50. It's come down a little bit. But notice if you correlate that to the CPI, the CPI is not capturing inflation as compared to a Big Mac. And a Big Mac has commodities in it. It has transportation costs to get the commodities to the stores. It has beef, lettuce. What else? Is it beef or horse? What's in a Big Mac? I forget what meat they use. Could be horse. And they got, you know, ketchup and they got vegetables, and they got the packaging, paper to package it. So it's a good indicator of inflation. He left quite some time ago. Oh, I didn't know that. I thought it was recent. You can always bargain. Interest is being paid to the same people who are taxed heavily. Yeah, good point, Mitesh. That's another solution I forgot to mention. Another solution to the debt problem, so it doesn't crowd out social services. Because, you know, if you're a left-winger, you like social services. You want a good return for your buck, taxation dollar. You want services from the government. So in order to solve that problem of this crowding out of interest payments, you can default on the debt. Or at least some of the debt. Or partially default on the debt. There's many options there as well. But if you do that, then interest rates will go sky high. But what hope is there for a young person who's like in their early 20s, getting married, wants to buy a starter home? Like, what hope do they have? Because the prices of homes gone sky high in the United States, and I think even the UK. What hope do they have to paying a 30-year mortgage at 8%? On inflated values of homes? Like nowadays, the people who can afford a home, like to buy a home today, almost basically have to pay cash. It's what, $300,000 home? Okay, here's $300,000. Right? My first home I bought when I got married. I got married at age 22. And in Canada, I bought a home. I sold 40 Black Angus heifers. I used the money from those heifers to put a down payment on a home. And I think I put 50% down. Yeah, I think I made $20,000 revenue on the heifers. And I bought a $42,000 home. So just under 50%. And I think my interest rate was 5%. And that was easy. My payments were low when you put 50% down. But nowadays, if I was 24 years old and I wanted to buy a home, Like even a cheap starter home, even in Arizona, I'm spending at least 250, probably 300,000. Well, 250 at least for a very small used home at 8% interest. What's the payment on that? At least 1,500 a month? Someone can do the math on that. I want to look at, we got to end capitalism so we can save the planet, right? So let's look at NASA. I saw Matt Dillahunty. Matt Dillahunty is a big fan of the Pinecreek main channel and the political channel. And Matt Dillahunty the other day was showing how this 3 Sigma event of ice around the Antarctic shrinking, showing global warming. So we should look at that here. Arctic sea ice minimum extent. Arctic sea ice reaches its minimum extent each September Arctic. So they measure it basically every September, how far ice goes out from the land in Antarctica. Is this Antarctica or Arctic? Oh, this is Arctic. Yeah, this is Arctic, sorry. Now Arctic, anyhow, the extent's gone down, meaning it's shrinking. But since 2012, no, what is this? 2013, it's gone up. So that's at least some positive news. Let's see what else we got here. Sea level. Oh yeah, look at this. Sea levels are rising. But it's still below 104. Remember a long time ago they shift the whole curve down because they forgot to take into account tectonic plate sinkage or something like that. But it's holding steady in 2023. It's still below where it was here on January 15th. Okay, and global temperature. Look at that. Oh, that's crazy, right? How much it's increased. But the good news is 2022 is still lower than 2016. 6 years ago, still lower than 6 years ago. Now, I had a friend during poker night saying, like, but you got to always look at the big trend. Like, this is terrible. This is, I mean, catastrophe is coming. But the point of showing this is that if in 6 years the global temperature hasn't really increased, that means, you know, it could take another 6 years to get above this. Could take 1 year. Who knows? Nobody can see the future. And I do this on purpose to show people that there's time for humans to act. There's time for humans to respond. That you don't need to panic. The interest payments are going to kill us long before global warming, right? What else did I want to show you? Oh yeah, I want to show you this. Getting back to deficits. I've kept track of deficits, debt, deficits and deficits per GDP. So we're almost done 2023, so I'll put that in a couple months. So we can't really blame Biden for this because of COVID, but 2.8 billion his first year, 1.4 second year, but we're on pace for 1.6, 1.7. No, probably 1.7, 1.8 trillion in 2023. This is a COVID year. If Trump, the reason why a lot of people on the right don't like Trump is because how he handled COVID. It's not because of the indictments or any of that stuff. if Trump loses his base, in fact, he should go to the debate and take questions on this, respond to how he responded to COVID. Because the reason why we have inflation today, in my opinion, is because of this number right here. Why is that deficit number so high? Because of all the money pumped into the system, into the economy in 2020. And when there's lots of money, prices go up. When there's lots of money in the system, if I know you have lots of money and I want to sell you a product, I'm going to charge more. Fun fact. But before that, under $1 trillion a year. Obama, under $1 trillion, except for these years. Because remember this, we were coming out of the 2008 crisis. But that still took 4 years. So the most deficit spending out of any president is still Obama. Although, to be fair, Trump only had 4 years. So if Trump, if he was reelected, would have probably beat Obama. But Biden's on pace to beat Obama. Definitely. Maybe even in 4 years. Biden could beat Obama. Now, as in terms of deficit per GDP, 6.8%, 13.9. This is an average for Trump, 7.4. Biden's more deficit spending than Trump so far. Obama was 5.6. George W. Bush was 1.7. Clinton was 0.5. One of the best Republican presidents. George H. Bush, 2.5. Reagan, 2.1. Carter, 0.9. Look at that. He's always viewed as a terrible president, but when it comes to deficit spending, he was not too bad. Ford, 0.6. Oh, you can't see the last column? Yeah, you can. Deficit per GDP is the last column. Okay, what else did I want to show you? Oh yeah, I did some COVID analysis, and people on the left are going to love this. See, I love appealing to people on the left, because I just want to be loved. Because when I'm loved, I feel good. Let's see here. We all just want to be loved. So what I did this morning is I looked up what percentage of states are fully vaccinated. So that's the first shot and then the second shot. So I didn't go with partial, I didn't go with boosters, just, back in 2021, 2022, fully vaccinated. So there's no surprises here. Rhode Island, Vermont, Massachusetts, Maine, Connecticut, Hawaii, all these beautiful blue states. New York, Maryland, New Jersey. Look at that. And this is their COVID death rate as of today, close to today. Death rate per population. So the total number of COVID deaths, according to the CDC, divided by the total population of that state. Then look at all these terrible red states. Wyoming, only 52% fully vaccinated. Alabama, Mississippi, a bunch of hillbillies. Idaho, white supremacists there. Tennessee, they listen to country music. Arkansas, Georgia, Indiana. So what I did was, I took the top 10 states, and I averaged their death rate, 0.28%. Took the bottom Republican states, 0.38. Oh, you can't see that. Hang on. People love how messy I make these things. So the top 10 states, the average, 0.28. The Republican states, death rate, 0.38. Which is only a difference of 0.1%, but when you times that by millions of a population, you're talking tens of thousands of extra deaths. Then what I did is I made this chart, as far as I know, nobody's made a chart like this before. This is like innovation. This is... And yeah, I didn't label it. I mean, I'm a finance guy. I got things to do, people to see. So this blue line is the percent fully vaccinated for all 50 states. I didn't do Washington, D.C. So these are those hillbilly Republican states. These are the refined, rich north of Richmond states over here. So, you know, 90% fully vaccinated and drops. And each of these orange, what color is that? Is that orange? Yeah, orange dots represent the death rate. You notice that if you're fully vaccinated, lower death rates. When you're lower vaccinated, higher death rates. You can't argue against the data. So the data is basically saying that vaccinations save lives. Anybody disagree with that? I don't think you can. But what's the but? Is there any buts? There's no buts. Myron said there's no buts. But there is a but. What's the but? Who did these lack of vaccinations mostly kill? The older people. Right? We know, especially in 2022, it was upwards to 80% of all the deaths were of people over 65. So here's my point. And I have yet to have a person convince me otherwise. And I'm willing to be convinced otherwise. My point is, oh no, I'll lead with a question. Imagine you pick out a random person out of the United States populace and you vaccinate them, you fully vaccinate them. Question, what is the probability that they will go to the hospital with a serious adverse event due to the vaccination? I highly suggest you ask that question of anybody who's really promoting the vaccine. Ask that question. Here, I'll repeat it. What is the probability that someone will go to the hospital because they were vaccinated? A serious adverse event. So serious they have to go to the hospital. Whether that's an allergic reaction or whatever. And from my research, and I've talked about this in previous live streams, I think the answer is 0.1%. So 1 in 1,000 roughly. And I think it doesn't matter what, actually I do think it matters what age you are. I think you're more likely to go to the hospital from a serious adverse event the younger you are than older. It seems like the older people could take the vaccine better than the younger people, but I'm not sure about that. But let's just say it's the same. 1 in 1,000, 0.1%. I think that number is correct. Then you have to ask yourself this. What is the probability that someone who's, let's say, age 20 will go to the hospital if they get COVID? Yeah, I do have a source on that, and I have it in the description box of, if you type Pinecreek vaccine and then look in the description, you'll see a paper that shows that. And that 0.01% number comes, I think, from the actual studies from Pfizer and other companies. So the question is, what's the probability that someone at age 20 who gets COVID will go to the hospital? And I think the answer to that question is less than 0.1%. Do you understand what I'm saying? Do you understand what I'm saying? If that's true, what I said, that means you have a higher risk of going to the hospital from getting the vaccine than not, and getting COVID. So this is the but in this chart. This chart is saying the vaccine saves lives, but whose lives is it saving? People over 65 mostly. So people over 65 definitely should got the vaccine. But if what I said is true about the adverse event is true, people definitely aged 20 and under should not have gotten the vaccine. Now, I get knee-jerk reactions to this when I say this, but I wonder why. Why would this cause a knee-jerk reaction? I'm trying to actually steel man the other side and trying to figure out why would this cause people to freak out? Why is it so bad to say that young people should not be vaccinated? And the only thing I can think of is, well, if they're not vaccinated, they're more likely to spread. Like they get COVID and they can spread it to older people who then cause more deaths. Okay, I understand that. But ironically, it was the spread of COVID that led it go from Omicron to Delta, which is a less potent variant. It was actually the spread that actually saved lives. You disagree with that? The death rate with Delta was far lower than the first variant. And now there's a new variant called Eris or something, which is, I think, even less lethal than Delta. The virus is mutating to save itself by not killing the host. Hindsight is 2020, Doug. Matesh, that is a great comment. But why? This is the reason why I bring it up. Because we can look at all this in hindsight and say mistakes were made. That maybe, yeah, you could be on the left, you could be a Democrat listening to me right now and say, yeah, okay, Doug, I can see your point. You make a strong point, but we didn't know it at the time. And so we just did the best we could do with the evidence we had. But here's the point of all this. The point of all this is the next time it happens, 5, 10, 50 years from now, the next time this happens, we should learn from history and say, maybe we shouldn't do this. Right? We can learn from history. We should lower our confidence. Like, really, by mid-2020, I'd say by at least July 2020, we already knew that Omicron, it was Delta first, right? Delta first, then Omicron? Or was it Delta, Omicron first, then Delta? It was Delta first, right? Yeah, Delta first. I mixed that up earlier. But the first variant, anyhow, we knew very early on affected mostly older people. We knew that very early on. So, in my opinion, if I was the dictator of the United States, like the presidents are, I would have said, let's get the vaccines as fast as we can, but done right, and then give it to the old people, and let's sequester, isolate older people. Yeah, Delta first, yeah. Like, looking back, that whole shutting down schools for kids was a huge mistake. How many kids got screwed up from that? Wearing masks, hiding your face. For how many months did that occur? I forget. Terrible mistake. When we knew that the chance of a kid, an 18-year-old, a 14-year-old, dying from COVID was so small. In fact, I have the numbers here. I've showed this before, but I'll show it again. In 2020, 154 people died under the age of 30. Do you know that? In 2020, 154 people, according to the CDC, died from, I don't know how they exactly word it, while having COVID or from COVID, whatever the CDC says. I got all the data from the CDC. And out of the 154, my guess is the vast, vast majority of them were either had some pre-existing condition or were very overweight or whatever. In other words, they deserve to die. No, I'm kidding. Sorry, people on the left, they don't like jokes like that. In 2021, 378 people under 30. Now, you got to remember, this is under 30. I'm talking about kids in school. That's under 18. But even under 30, like, put this in perspective, people. How many people live in the United States? 350 million, roughly. 378 people in all the year 2021 died of COVID. That is nothing. Now, I know people on the left, every life is precious in the sight of the atheistic God. And in 2022, 148 people. I got the data here. I'm not lying to you. Here, I'll prove it. I've recorded all this stuff. I spent hours on this stuff. Yeah, lesson learned, I guess. So, what would I have done differently? I would not shut down the economy. I would have said, let's keep old people away from young people. Let's get the old people vaccinated. Let's not pump a whole bunch of, let's not shut down the economy and then pump in $4 trillion into the economy through digital monetization from the Federal Reserve. Let's not send out checks to small businesses or big businesses for retaining employees because we didn't shut down. And then they got all this money, and this would have at least helped not to create the inflation bubble that we have today. And with the debt situation, given that what happened in 2023, late 2022, when the Federal Reserve finally said, oh yeah, maybe we do have inflation. Remember they said it was transitory? Then they finally admit, okay, yeah, we got real inflation here. What the Federal Reserve should have done is not just raise it half a point, quarter point. No, they should have gone from 0 to 5% and shock the system and just have people weep and cry in the streets. And basically shut down all spending. Said, nope, we're not going to, and just cause that recession to happen quickly. It's like, right now, what the Federal Reserve is doing is they're taking the Band-Aid and they're just like, slowly, 1 millimeter at a time, slowly taking it off. It's like, we can't cause people to have pain because pain is owie, it's bad. And they're just like, oh, very slowly. No, you got to rip that Band-Aid off. This is the difference, I think, between the right and the left, actually. The left is like, oh, slowly. I don't want to have too much pain. But the right is like, let's rip that off. I think that's what the Federal Reserve should have done. And still can do, actually. It's not too late. Jerome Powell, if you're listening, I know you love the Pinecreek channel, Jerome Powell. For those of you from Idaho, Jerome Powell is the chairman of the Federal Reserve Committee. And right now, the Federal Reserve is at 5.5. But inflation, depending on what metrics you have, is still around anywhere from 4 to 8, depending. If you're looking at the Big Mac index, it's still very high. What you want to do is you want to squash inflation. You want even deflation so the kids can afford to buy a home. Just next time you meet, instead of going up a quarter point, half a point, let's just like go up to 8%. Just shock people. Just 3% rise. Let the stock market plummet. Let people feel, no, I've lost all my wealth. And then they'll spend less. They're less likely to go out to Outback and spend that big meal for their friends who are visiting from California. Any questions, comments? Bitcoin. Oh, I'm scared of Bitcoin personally because the government at any point could say, make it illegal. Don't get me wrong. I do like the concept behind Bitcoin, but we already have a version of Bitcoin going back centuries. It's called gold and silver. Just like you have to mine Bitcoin, you can mine gold and silver. And gold and silver actually has some real value other than just social construct value. Do you think the situation is unique due to the boomer generation being a larger gen and mass retiring impacts of this? Unemployment is really low. Well, definitely there's a demographic shift going on. We got more older people, which need who are receiving their benefits, and less reproduction because there's more atheists who refuse to have kids. Shame on you, atheists. Start reproducing. Only if you can afford it. But they can't afford it, so we're stuck, right? Oh, the reason why interest rates haven't really had a huge effect on earnings on companies, big companies especially, is because they got cash in the bank. Companies like Apple, Microsoft, Google, they have billions and billions of cash sitting in their savings account, checking account. So when the Federal Reserve raises interest rates, they're actually causing their earnings to go up, which causes the stock market to go up, which causes people to feel wealthier, which causes people to spend more, which causes more inflation. This is why I say that taxation, and this is why the left, the Democrats will love me when they hear me say this. This is why taxation might be a more efficient way to kill inflation. But there will be a lag effect because at some point, even, well, the vast majority of companies do still have debt, and at some point they'll have to refinance that debt at much higher levels, and then that will cause their earnings to go down. But companies that are debt-free, you could raise interest rates as high as you want. It's not going to affect them personally. In fact, they're going to make more and more money. Bring more immigrants. Okay, yeah, that's a great segue. I think immigration is one of the, next to the deficit, which is probably more for me, deficit or immigration, as an issue for this next election. It's close. For me, they're tied as the top issues. The financial situation and immigration. But my opinion for the immigration issue is seal the border tight. Get the National Guard down there, military, whatever, and you don't let anybody in. No one. And until we know exactly who we're letting in. Like, picture this. Let's imagine just like 1 out of 1,000 immigrants are bad guys. And 999 are like salt of the earth, lovely people, just wanting a better life, avoiding persecution and all that. But one person has committed a crime in a country with persecution, but they committed heinous crimes. They flee that persecuted country, even though they themselves have committed heinous crimes, and they want in. And they're seeking amnesty. Or, yeah, they want to get it into the country. They could be a serial killer. We don't want that, even if it's 1 out of 1,000. Do we want that? People on the left? I see you. I see you there. You're shaking your head. No, we don't want that one person who's a serial killer come in the country. So how do we stop that? Or do we say, oh, the 999 out of the 1,000 makes up for the one serial killer? I say no. So the only way you can stop that is you seal the border tight, and I think the policy Trump had was a good one, that until you wait for your court date, you have to wait in Mexico or another country. You can't just come in and wait. Then it becomes Mexico's problem. And maybe if it becomes Mexico's problem to such an extent, they will tighten up their borders too. This is an aside, but I've been trying to think, if I was president of the United States, how I would handle the homelessness problem. Because this is tied into the immigration problem. Because immigrants coming in and don't have a home. And they can't work legally, so they're kind of stuck. But how would I solve the homeless problem? And I've been thinking about this. And I haven't done any research on like what the experts say. But I do not think the solution is to give them public housing in urban areas. I think that's a mistake. So here's my solution. And if I was to run for president, this would probably be on my platform. I would move the homeless people out of cities and into farms, big farms. And hear me out. I think people on the left will like this. I'm going to appeal to the people on the left right now, especially the environmentalists. Environmentalists hate pesticides. No, herbicides. Herbicides. Well, they hate pesticides too. But they hate herbicides. In other words, they love organic farming, right? You people on the left, you granola crunchers. I say a solution is you get people who are addicted to drugs, you get them help, but on site on farms. So you can imagine tents where you got professional doctors, whatever they do to help people stop being addicted. And then however long that takes, the detox stage, once they've detoxed, you provide tents for them to live, but then they work on farms and they pull weeds. That's all they do, pull weeds. So you don't need to spray crops with herbicides. You save whatever the cost of spraying, either through airplanes or those big sprayers. You save on diesel fuel, on gas, the cost of the herbicide. You pay that to the homeless who are now working. And they actually have a home, but it's a tent on a farm. So you sealed the border, so all those immigrants that no longer come in and that would gone into agriculture, you've now replaced with American citizens and given them jobs, given them a sense of dignity that they're actually doing something productive. They're providing organic farming. So you pay them a wage, you provide free detox for them, and then at a certain point you start deducting, the costs. So they're actually saying, hey, I'm paying for my food, I'm paying for my tent there, and they're actually doing good for society instead of being a burden to society. They can feel good about themselves. They get dignity and respect. Because right now in the United States, the homeless problem, you'll see a few homeless people in small towns or in rural areas, but it's nowhere close to the problem you see in big cities. So the solution is get them out of the big cities. Put them on farms, detox them, and have them work hard. Now, you can give them the freedom not to do that, but then I guess you have to ask them the question, do you want to live or do you want to die? Your choice. Because you're going to die in a few years if you go back to the city and do these drugs. You're going to be dead. So do you want to live or do you want to die? I don't know how a lot of homeless people would answer that question. There's probably a good chunk of them say, I'd rather die, which is very, very sad. Reflective journey. You say, I think you're being a little sarcastic, the high purpose of picking weeds. But there is great purpose in that. That's the thing. Most people have never been raised on a farm and don't understand this, but I do. I've seen, let's say, a row of corn, but there's a bunch of weeds, and I've gone in and pulled some of these weeds and you can see with your own eyes what you've accomplished. You're bringing life to the plant that you want and everybody else wants, and you've destroyed the weeds that are trying to kill it. It is instant gratification, and yet it's so simple. No, I don't want to threaten the homeless with death. But at some point, people have to make a choice on their own. They have to make the choice if they want to live or die. I don't know what the death rate is for homeless people, but it has to be higher than non-homeless people. Like if you're doing hard drugs every day, like how long are you going to last? At some point, you got to show them a mirror and say, this is you. You will probably die if you keep this up. But it's your choice. Do you want to live or do you want to die? Your choice. That goes for any type of work. Well, yeah, sort of. But I actually have, I do think that like construction workers, for example, who build homes, they can get in their vehicle on a Sunday afternoon with their kids and say, you see that home? I built that, or I helped build that. See that? I built that. I built that. I built that. With a lot of professions, you can't do that. You can't actually tangibly show people what you've done. Well, you can maybe, but not something that lasts for years. I made a mistake. Well, actually, I'm not going to blame myself. Myron made a mistake. Myron, right? Yeah. When we did the immigration video, it was on the religious channel. It should have been on this channel. But I wanted to play this one because this one is, I think, really good. It was my favorite, but it's also the longest. But it's a sheriff in Arizona who takes Peter Centinelo out for a ride. And I think it's very informative. It shows people what's actually going on. And so, let's see, I'm going to play it up maybe just a scotch faster than normal, maybe 1.1. And I might skip some parts.
Political rhetoric, get down to business.
Here in Good morning, guys. Here in Yuma, Arizona, right on the border with Mexico. And in recent times, there's been a huge influx of migrants coming over this border. But what is the situation like now? What does it compare to other times in Yuma history? So today we're going to meet with Sheriff.
Now, for those of you who don't know, Peter Centinelo is a very, I would say, a moderate type of guy. He doesn't lean right. He doesn't lean left. He's a pretty balanced guy, and he's been focusing on this issue for a while. This video alone has 5.8 million views. It's quite popular. And he has at least half a dozen videos on this topic. And so he's pretty well informed, and he's talked to a lot of experts.
Wilmot, who's been in office here for decades, who's going to walk us through his perspective and his understanding of the situation. Let's do this. All right, Sheriff, where are we going?
Well, we hit the remote part first, and then we'll get back into town. Or we can do vice versa, whatever you want to do.
Where's the more interesting part?
Well, it's all interesting.
Okay, let's do remote. Yeah.
That's where all the people are dying. So Yuma County, 5,500 square miles. I got 95 deputies that patrol all of this.
Okay.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The cartels have designated locations along the border they allow people to cross. Then the cartels also have designated areas that they control where their narcotics come across. And those that do not want to be.
By the way, people are the new drug. People are the new narcotic. You can make way more money smuggling people than smuggling drugs across the Mexican border.
Apprehended are also guided through. Anybody that crosses the border here is paying anywhere from $6,000 per person up to $15,000. It all depends on what country you came from. So those that are coming from Russia, Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, Uzbekistan, the Ukraine, they're paying more to get here.
You're getting migrants from that part of the world.
Oh yeah, 140 different countries. You figure this last federal fiscal year in Yuma County, just on.
Like, I wonder how many people in the U.S. really understand that. Like, a lot of times they just envision these very poor, feel sorry for people out of Mexico, Central America, maybe South America. But no, there's people coming from the Middle East, Africa, Russia, all over the world.
In the river corridor, there are over 310,000 people that were apprehended and processed by Border Patrol agents. And then out in the eastern part of my county, in the remote desert, there's over 28,000 getaways that they know of for sure. There could be more. That's the impact for Yuma Sector Border Patrol, which is either the second or third smallest Border Patrol sector in the whole for U.S. Border Patrol. Mm-hmm. So they're running maybe 800 agents that had to handle over 310,000 people. There's the border right there.
Where? Oh, the fence is up there.
Yeah.
What I was told in South Texas was the fence isn't going to stop anyone. 32-foot fence, 33-foot ladder, whatever, right? But it makes it easier for Customs and Border Protection to deal with it because they can set up the infrastructure on the on the fence. You can see where people are all pinching together to go over, whatever.
Yeah, so that argument that a fence is not going to stop someone who really wants to get in, that argument is true. You're not going to stop someone who's determined to get in. They can bring a blowtorch, they could bring a saw, they can bring ladders. If they want to get through that fence, they can. But the difference is it will at least slow them down, and it will provide time for Border Patrol to actually get there in time to stop them. Because it takes time to climb a ladder. It takes time to cut a fence. It takes time to do whatever you're going to do. Dig under it even.
Right.
Is that your understanding of it, or
It's a deterrent. And yes, they do use ladders, but ergo, you have cameras, you have sensors, but it does slow
No, I haven't watched this video yet, Jerome.
down that criminal element so that Border Patrol can actually respond and get there to be able to apprehend. And it keeps individuals from impacting our...
No, this was, this one we did not watch, I don't think. Yeah, no, I'm quite sure. I'm 99% sure we didn't watch this on the other channel.
Farmers. When most people hear Yuma, Arizona, they think of desert. What you need to understand is Yuma County supplies the whole of the United States, 90% of your winter leafy greens. When you have these gaps in the fencing that were stopped, it's just an open area and it funnels the cartels. This is one of the crossing points, is right down here. And there's where it impacts our farmers because those individuals were going into those fields and defecating and the trash was being left there. As a farmer, because of food safety, you can't harvest that area.
Yeah, this is another thing that you city folk don't understand. You can't have... There's tons of farmland along the southern border, especially in Arizona. And when migrants cross and take a dump in the fields, you just can't harvest it now. The FDA will come after you. Like, this really impacts the farmers, which impacts the prices of goods, of farm goods.
It's now contaminated.
What do?
They just have to plow it under. So where we're at here is Morales Dam. Obviously, United States, Mexico, right across the river. Cartels designated this as one of the crossing points. So you can see along that, where that pickup is at, there's a little road that goes down. Okay. So they get off at the airport, Mexicali, take their Uber, bus, cab,
Get off at the airport.
Yeah, they all fly into Mexicali. Everybody that's coming here is flying in.
They're not doing the long, hard journey through the
none of
country.
these folks are doing that. They're flying in. Some of these countries, they have to manipulate airports according to whether or not that country requires a visa. Some of the Russians were going out through Dubai and other countries to make it all the way into Cabo. They'd spend a couple weeks in Cabo, and then they would fly into Mexico City, and then into Mexicali. So all these different 140 plus countries.
Yeah, see, I think this impression that a lot of these immigrants are so poor, like they've walked thousands of miles to get to where they're going, and then they're, how cruel would it be to shut them down at the border? No, a big chunk of these immigrants have money, they're flying in, then they're paying the cartels thousands of dollars to get across.
All educated enough to figure out how to get from airport to airport to airport.
So
310,000 have crossed this area of the river corridor from here, between here and about 8 miles.
you guys down here were putting storage containers, right?
Right, the governor.
To
Ducey
block
did.
the gaps here?
Right. They pulled all the containers out because finally this administration has decided that they need to finish this portion because of the sheer amount and volume of people coming in here illegally.
So this fence is going to be built here soon?
They're supposed to be contracted out to put in the rest of this gap, but not all gaps, and I'll show you that out. So they just walk off the bus, walk down that little trail right there, come across right here. So you're not even getting wet.
And then who gets them here on the Arizona side?
Border Patrol.
That's so interesting. So they want to get caught.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's what we call give-ups. These are individuals that those countries won't take them back. So
Like
they're
the
being released.
Russians won't take them back?
No.
Okay. So
Or
once
they're
they...
claiming asylum because they're coming from a country of violence.
Okay, so once they get in, Customs Border Protection
Right.
takes them in,
Right.
processes them,
Correct.
and then they have an asylum court hearing.
Well, they're given a notice to appear wherever they're going in the U.S. You got to have a sponsor.
Okay.
So, and I picked up pieces of paper showing addresses within the interior of the United States.
Yeah, I think soon, while they're talking, we'll see a immigrant trying to get in.
It's Wisconsin, New Jersey, where that's where they're going.
What's your understanding of the backlog right now when they have to appear in that state?
Before this administration came along, the backlog, as we understood it, was anywhere from 7 to 11 years because they had over 11 million illegals that were still pending
Yeah, right here.
hearings.
He's going the other way. He's going to
There's
Mexico. Oh, there we go. Holy shit.
Alto! Ready?
Okay, the one guy went through the gap. This guy's swimming right now.
See him?
Just went into the reeds. Literally, guys, we've been down here just 10 minutes or so. Wow.
He's still walking that way.
Is he on land?
No, he's in the water.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm watching him. You gonna get the other one? Just two?
Just two.
Okay.
So I thought it would have been a nighttime thing, but it's all time.
All day
huh?
long, every day. So these are ones that are the getaways.
So this guy will go back, hide in the reeds, wait
Yeah.
a while, and then
Yeah, and he'll come back.
he doesn't want to get caught, though.
No.
Why doesn't
So,
he want to get caught?
Probably because he's either prior deport or he's got a criminal history. You just heard him laughing. He thinks it's funny. It's all a game.
It's just cat and mouse.
Yeah.
Looks like a pretty big jump he's about to do. Not too bad. It's hard to explain, guys. A very surreal part of the country. And until you see it firsthand, I know the video does a bit of capturing it, but here's the opportunity, and many people want the opportunity. Very understandable. Why wouldn't you want to go where the opportunity is? I mean, I don't...
By the way, I've been to Nogales, Arizona, right along the border, and I've actually walked away from the main roads out into the fields with a guy once. I won't tell you why, because it's confidential. But there was basically nothing. you could see remnants of a fence, but it was like all trodden down, and you could just clearly see paths of trails across. It just easy. You just walk across.
I said I would do the same thing if I was living in poverty or in a terrible situation. I would go for the U.S. But as an American, I want the legal process to be respected, and we should know everyone who's coming in our country, right?
He's coming up beside you.
Did you ever see that one leave the pond?
Yeah, he's already over and working his way up towards the other side.
You sprinted pretty hard there.
I did. I'm out of breath. I need to start running.
Did you catch the other one?
Yeah, the second one was up by the train tracks.
Oh, was he? Okay.
I'll put you down as the your sister.
Well, at least he caught the one that was getting away. Yeah, I get it, but I mean, let me ask you something. What's the threshold of dealing with it?
This is the question.
This country
there is a threshold.
We cannot afford to take care of all these other countries' issues.
Right.
I mean, right now, you look at the massive amount of money being spent each and every day by this administration dealing with this. So you look at one tent to house individuals, just to sleep in it, is about $4.5 million a month. Okay?
What do you mean?
One tent.
Oh, one of these big tents?
One of these big tents that you see on the news, $4.5 million. Now, the other tents.
Yeah, now I can hear the people on the left screaming, yeah, but immigrants are good for the economy. They will eventually have jobs or pay taxes, sales tax at least. And so there's studies to prove this. But the fact of the matter is that for a lot of the immigrants, they have no place to go. They have to be housed in these tents until they have their asylum hearings, fed, clothed. He said $4.5 million a month in Arizona. And some of these immigrants are pregnant and will need to, and some of these immigrants are sick. And some of these immigrants don't have money to pay for health care. So when they're on the U.S. side and they go to the hospital, guess who pays? The state. No, not the state, the hospitals. Now, this is really going to offend people on the left right now, but it's the truth. Well, it's the truth for the southern border states especially. But part of the reason why healthcare is so much money in the United States is because U.S. citizens have to pay for their healthcare plus the immigrant healthcare who don't pay for their healthcare, which is true for even U.S. citizens who can't pay for their own healthcare, but especially in the border states. When a woman goes in to give birth, or if a person is sick and they're paid for, the way that the hospital has to recoup its costs is to charge extra for the people who can't afford to pay, which causes medical inflation. Ooh, I bet you that a lot of people on the left don't like hearing that.
Are about 6.5 million because that's where they have to cook the food and feed the folks. And then you look at the fact that they got laundry services so they can get their laundry done. And the fact that Border Patrol each and every day has to buy food and clothing to clothe these individuals. When does it stop? It's 16 million a month for HHS just to deal with the unaccompanied children that come across. That's your tax dollar and mine.
But we don't have any problems in this country, so we have plenty of money to spend.
Well, if you live in a bubble, you don't have a problem.
Plenty of money to spend, after I just showed you the deficit situation.
But we deal with reality here. We got it all
figured out here. No issues in America. The video you're watching right now is 55 minutes.
That patch on it?
Okay, right there.
That's where they have cut right above that piece, and that's allowed them the ability to swing that fence post.
Okay.
So they can get through. And you see there's a walkway all along the side of this fence. I've actually intercepted them cutting the fence myself, and I got the one finger wave because it pissed them off.
Can you do anything being sheriff, or
the only thing I can do is
if
they Border Patrol has to do it. Arizona had 1070 law, and that allowed us to charge an individual for smuggling. But the Obama administration sued the state of Arizona, took them to court. Supreme Court said, yes, you're right. Federal responsibility is immigration. Smuggling is part of that. So Arizona, you cannot charge a person for smuggling. So if we detain anybody for just an immigration violation, technically we can get charged by the Department of Justice for kidnapping. Figure that one out. Even if our officers respond to a domestic violence call and we find a house full of individuals that are in there, there's nothing that we can charge that person with knowing that they are smuggling. Now, we can try to get a hold of Border Patrol if they have people to respond.
By the way, I got to say, Yuma is very flat. It reminds me of the prairies where I was from, but you don't see these palm trees. But it's beautiful there. I just get so nostalgic when I go to Yuma, Arizona, because it reminds me of the prairies in Canada, but yet with different vegetation.
But that's in Yuma. All the rest of the places throughout the country, they don't have access to Border Patrol or HSI to come take the case.
What's the number one nationality
Isn't that
you're seeing
beautiful?
these days? Or
Right
the top
now,
three?
I think the top ones is Ecuador, then Colombia.
What's with OTM? Have you heard of that other than Mexicans?
Yeah, they've used that for years other than Mexican. That's what all these are. I mean, you don't see a whole lot of individuals from Mexico proper trying to come across because they'll get returned immediately because there's that agreement with the country. So when you look at people talking about Title 42, that's where they're able to send individuals back to those countries. 95% of what comes across into Yuma is Title 8. These are individuals that are coming from countries where that government won't take them back.
Are the cartels operating much on this side of the border? In
Oh,
Yuma,
yeah.
are you dealing with them?
They're on both sides. It's safer for them to live over here. Think about it. So you do have members of the cartel that live in the U.S. all along the border. You have sicarios that live on the U.S. side.
Sicarios.
Hitmen.
Okay.
Those are what the
I
cartels
love that
use
movie,
to
by the
take
way,
out
Sicario.
their opponents, let's say. So you have major narcotics groups all through the U.S. MS-13 is one that...
The IM says, that's right. I worked as a critical care nurse in San Diego Hospital. I ignore every Democrat that dares to complain about health care costs. Stop voting these people in. Yeah, well, I'm in Tucson, Arizona. And when my wife gave birth to our kids through C-section, you would be shocked of what you see. How many immigrants... Now, how many, I shouldn't say, but the nurses, they talk, and it's like, I don't know how much of it's true or not, but in southern border states, hospitals, I'll make this statement, the majority of them are not U.S. citizens giving birth. I can't prove this. If it's not the majority, it's close. It's like 50-50.
Everybody
And again, I'm talking about southern states, southern cities and southern states.
is familiar with hearing with. Well, that's why they're integrated in all these communities, because they work with the cartels, not only the narcotics side, but the human side as well. Because if you can't afford to pay the cartel, then you are going to pay them in another way, human trafficking. So they're going to pay according to what the cartel wants. So if you got a kid, they may use that kid to smuggle in other people, send them back to that country, bring in somebody else, portray a family unit. You may end up
Portray a
with,
family unit, because if you come in as a family unit,
you have quicker access to get into the U.S. So we're coming up on the Kokopah tribal land, and in Arizona.
See, that's another thing. It's like when you see a man and a woman and two kids come across the border, I don't think you can be naive and just assume they're a family unit. Like, I think a lot of feel sorry for type people will say, oh, isn't that sweet? I mean, we got to let them in, their family. We don't even know. Like, you got to do research on a family to see, are they really a family to begin with? Are these kids the children of those people?
Sovereign land. And the Kokopah is a river, the river people. So they need access to the river because that's part of their...
So on their tribal land, there's no fence?
There's no fence. There are bollards, or we call them Normandy barriers. And that's used to keep the individuals that were smuggling narcotics from coming across in vehicles and UTVs. But again, here's the porta-johns that we had to do. Border Patrol had to put up a cover for shade.
So
why are scientists overwhelmingly liberal? First of all, I'm not sure if that's true, but I'd say university systems where scientists do research, that's true. But in the private sector, scientists, maybe not. In the hard sciences, I would say the majority of them are not liberal. In the soft sciences, yes. So it all depends, Mitesh.
Immigrants coming in?
Yep. So to give you an idea of the monstrosity that we were dealing with here, this was all covered in trash. Some NGOs have come in and cleaned this up. But what I would find down here is...
See, this gets back to how to solve the homeless problem in, let's say, California or big cities in the United States, who are citizens. Homeless people who are citizens, hire them to come to the border and clean up the mess the immigrants are making. Gives them some sense of purpose and dignity. Actually, that's not a bad idea. Pinecreek 2024? No, let's wait to 2028. I can't become president because I was born in Canada.
All these identification cards and passports, I picked all these up myself.
Just in the dirt out here?
Just on the ground. And we might find some again today. But see, these are individuals that have fled countries of violence, then gone to another country, been allowed to stay there. That's what a lot of these green ones are. They've been allowed to reside in those countries and work and live. But that's not what their original intent was. Their original intent was to get through that country to get to the United States. So they discard their passports, their ID cards, and they portray themselves as somebody different from their original country of violence. So it's a game. So we share all this with HSI. So every one of these have been shared with our federal government. But this is just a small snapshot of what I've picked up down here as far as passports.
If you're from Venezuela, right? Let me try to walk through this, right? You come up through Mexico, right? You want to discard your passport before you come over?
Yeah, because everything's given to you here.
Okay, what happens if you come over with your passport? They're going to say...
Well, for some now, they're allowed to stay.
Some are allowed to stay, okay.
But those individuals have already reestablished residency somewhere else.
So maybe it's a Venezuelan that lived in Mexico for 5 years.
Or a year.
Or a year, okay.
And their ultimate goal was to get here.
Right, I read a lot of the Haitians that came in, say this last summer, or whenever that was in the last year.
Yeah.
A lot of them had lived in Chile or other places, not even Haiti.
Oh, yeah.
And they recently came up, but they haven't even been in Haiti for a long time.
No.
Okay, so here's where it ends.
So here's where the fencing ends, and this is the tribal land, as you can see. So you have the Kokopah tribal land, which is sacred, sovereign land. You get some border challenge coins. Look, right here. See what I was telling you about? They toss their money. So this is all money. They know when they get here, they're going to be able to...
Here's a euro.
Yeah, so...
Look at that.
Go ahead and pick them up.
We have a euro.
Don't throw it back down. Keep it.
What is that?
I'll put it in my...
yeah, euro's worth
You're a coin collector,
$1.50.
Well, I use it for display.
No, not anymore.
Display purposes. So
what coins have you seen? Like, what are the most far out there coins?
Well, I'm waiting to find something from Russia.
We're looking for Russian rubles.
See, like, this is interesting. If you're an immigrant and you got nothing to hide, why would you drop your passport at the border? Right? Why would you drop all your identification at the border if you have nothing to hide and you're being persecuted in your home country? Your story makes sense. You would keep your identification. Say, this is who I am. This is where I'm coming from. I need help. Please help me in the United States, right? But there's just scattered, like these bags full of people's identification that they're just leaving behind.
Out here
but
on the
see,
border.
Anybody I bring down here, well, you missed a bunch. But you see right here, they tear up their IDs. They're still doing it.
Okay.
They'll tear up their identification card because they don't want to get caught.
Chile.
There's some more right there. See, look, you're missing a lot of money.
More euros. This is crazy.
When I bring people,
What a wild, I mean, you're used to it, but what a wild part of the world. We're right here,
yeah,
Yuma County, then the natives control this land.
right,
We have euros in the dirt,
yeah.
and
And
Russians and 140 nationalities getting through here some way, shape, or form.
Oh yeah. Here's some more right here. Look. See, more IDs tore apart.
Okay, so they
Is that
don't
a
flip
50
it
euro?
the IDs.
See, if you put this together, it'll have all the information you need.
So why do they do it right on the border? Why don't they just do it like way in there?
Lord only knows.
Toothbrushes.
Yeah.
So it's not an eco-friendly bunch, but that's the last thing on their minds, obviously trying to get into
Yeah, they
another
don't care.
country.
I mean, you look at some of this trash, I can show you pictures where all of this is just covered in trash, this whole area. But luckily an NGO came along and cleaned it up because they knew senators were coming. And because the senators are coming, you got to sanitize before they get here.
If I was president of the United States, I'd make a law that if we catch you throwing trash down at the border, you can't become a citizen or you can't become a resident. The no littering rule.
To make it look like there's not really a big issue.
Because you come here now and you're like, there's no issue. There's no one trying to get over.
Yeah.
But you're saying it pulses. Like you have the tent set up there. You had a big rush here. Now it's somewhere else.
Now it's moved.
We had the guy that we ran into down there, obviously.
Yeah.
This guy's got a full ID here.
Oh, look, there's all kinds of them right here.
This guy's from China.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I'm going to be devil's advocate for 1 second. Ready? Ready?
right ahead.
Just go along with me here.
Right.
We're a country of immigrants.
Right,
We all came from somewhere.
right.
And we need immigration. We have,
Correct.
we need a workforce.
Okay.
We need brains. We need talent. We need work.
We need less immigration if you take my idea about putting homeless to work.
But like you said before, there's a threshold. Like how much can you take? And everyone has a threshold, as in like they're living in their house.
Right.
And if all of a sudden they had 300 people show up on their front lawn, they would have reached their threshold, right? So what is that threshold? Maybe that's the big question.
Yeah, that is the big question. What is the threshold? So, I think this is a question that can bring the right and left together, because you can actually get numbers and then try to find a compromise. So right now, the United States has roughly 350 million people. How many people per year? In fact, let's do this in the live stream chat. If you live in the United States, even if you don't, you can participate. In a country with 350 million people, how many immigrants from other countries should be allowed in per year? Put your answer in the live stream chat. I'm trying to think what my answer would be. So, people from other countries all around the world, you want a policy of a quota, basically, how many you're going to let in per year. What would it be? I can't pull it because, well, I guess I could. I could put, yeah, okay, I'll try to pull it. What happened to my pull function? Oh, I know what happened. Let me see here. There we go. How many immigrants per year? 0 to 500,000. No, that's too big. Let's go 0 to 100,000. 100,000 to 500,000. 500K to a million. I don't know, 1 to 5 million. See, this is the problem making a poll like this. It's like, how many immigrants per year? Vote now. trying to think how I would answer this question. This is for the United States only. Population of the United States, was it 360, 370 million? Someone said 1% per year. That'd be what? 3.7 million? Look at the range in answers here. Let's get up to 30 votes. There's 71 of you in here. Gotta get at least half of you voting. Yeah, including Canadians. And how many people actually came in? Well, we don't know that number, do we? In 2022, 286 non-citizens obtained lawful permanent residence. That's not what we're after. Yeah. I don't think we actually know because of the open border, or more open border. We don't know the right answer. How many if you had control of the United States, how many immigrants would you allow in? Assuming this current situation, assuming the current unemployment rates, assuming what you see in the world, in the United States today. I think my answer would be 100K to 500K. Okay, so the majority said 0 to 100,000. Let me start a new poll. If you had to choose, would you rather let in immigrants with let's see, how do I word this? Yeah. So now that you've answered how many people you would let in, this will see how many cold-hearted and soft-hearted people we have in here. Kazakh, United States is not a free market. It's a freer market than some other countries, but it's not a free market. Yeah, Nathan, it's going to depend on the economic state of the country. And so I said it was based on the United States and the current situation in the United States. Yeah, see, I think this question is a no-brainer. Now, the thing is, there are real people out there who are hurting and are truly persecuted and will die if they don't get into the United States or a country like the United States. And I think the United States should morally let a percentage of immigrants be financially dependent. In other words, it is completely a charity case. But how you gauge that is tough. Like, do you take out of 100 immigrants, do you do 80-20, 20% charity case, 80% financially secure immigrants who are not going to be a burden to society? 90% of you say if you had to choose, you would choose financially secure immigrants over financially dependent immigrants. I wonder if you were to do a national poll on this, what the results would be. What do you guys think? Do you think it would be 90-10 on a national poll? I don't think so. I think there's a big enough chunk of the population who, I'll say it this way, suffer from feel sorry forism, that they would say, no, you want financially dependent immigrants. Doug, why should we be the only charitable nation? No, I'm not saying the United States should be the only charitable nation. But I do think there's a case to be made that a nation feels better about itself when it does help people who are truly in need. I'm saying this, you can actually have selfish intent. Like, you feel good when you help someone in need, right? Who is financially dependent. It makes you feel good. That's, I think, is a good thing. The selfish gene, remember? Okay, let's get back to the sheriff.
Nobody can really agree on, right?
Well, you have these electeds, and all you hear is, we need to fix our immigration. We need to fix our immigration laws, right? Why don't we have a change in the immigration laws? Because they can't get together on it. So what do? They create a crisis to take your mind off of the fact that they can't do their job.
What's the crisis?
Immigration, COVID, you name it.
Here's another euro.
Oh, cool.
Did you ever see as many euros down here? Euro.
Now that sounded, the sheriff just said sounded very conspiratorial, right? But I do think there's some truth to that. That if you can instill fear in the populace, they are more likely to be controlled. So if you tell people you're going to die from COVID, you're going to die from climate change, you're going to die from this, immigrants are going to take your jobs, immigrants are going to whatever. It works both ways on the political scale, this fear issue. This is why I advocate being more dead inside. If you're more dead inside, you're less likely to be manipulated by these fears.
Coins? Or is that a new thing?
No, oh, look, there's a whole ID.
Drag queens are going to take over your kids. That's another fear that Republicans have.
Nigeria? Where's that one?
Peru.
Oh, look, more.
Jesus.
See? Now that we're down here towards Gadsden and San Luis, welcome to Jurassic Park. So please keep your hands and your limbs inside the vehicle at all times, because I don't want you to...
You have a garage door opener for the fence?
For the
Is that what's going on here?
For the
That's
gate,
kind of cool.
This is still the U.S., right?
Yeah, this is all U.S.
Okay.
Welcome to Mexico. Like, I'm going to be carrying guns into Mexico. They'd love that right now.
So what do we have here? Burnt wire? What's the point of that?
Well, they were keeping warm, so they burned anything that they could find.
Isn't setting a fire here just like a basic sign that you're here and
Well, they got a camera right there, so they know. But they're just waiting for Border Patrol to have the resources to come pick them up. What was that right there?
Yeah. Here we got a Cuba.
We're going to work on your powers of observation.
I know, but this is the hard deets.
You're supposed to
A Cuban going from hardcore socialism / communism to America? Well, why would anybody want to leave communism?
But
Sorry, I forgot. I'm your Trevette. Yeah, you're Walker, Texas Ranger, I'm Trevette. How does it make you feel, though, seeing this every day? Do you become numb, or does it dishearten you because you love your country, or what does that feel like for you?
I feel bad for the rest of the country because we're all going to have to deal with this. Your community is going to pay the price for what this administration is doing on not enforcing the rule of law. The bottom line is, to enter this country legally, you have to go to a port of entry. Claim asylum at a port of entry. That is the law. I get the fact that a lot of the politicians don't like the immigration law. Well, fix it and change it. But until then, you need to enforce the rule of law. It worked. We've seen it through the prior administration when we were only getting 25 to 40 apprehensions a day in Yuma County proper versus over 1,000 a day now. This administration, because of their politics and personal and political ideologies, stopped all that because they hate one guy who who actually supported law enforcement. And the people of this country need to understand that this is coming into their backyard. This person's going to be in their backyard under a different name, and you don't know what kind of criminal history this guy's got. I've run into doctors.
That's a pretty powerful argument. They're holding the card from the Cuban guy. And Nathan in the livestream chat made a very wise comment. Odds are the reason why this Cuban guy left Cuba, where it's free healthcare, right? Free education too, and came to the United States, it's probably because he's a crook, he's a criminal. So he fled Cuba, trying to get in the United States. This criminal, most likely, this Cuban guy, is going to be in somebody's backyard someday. Oh, inciting fear, right? Well, maybe not your backyard, but in the community.
I've run into...
And so even if that's only one of 1,000 cases, we still need to know who that one person is, who's the bad guy. And the way you do that is through enforcing the rule of law, port of entry, people sign up for asylum, and then they need to wait in the Mexico side or Canada side, whatever border they come to. They just can't come in and wait. They have to wait outside the United States until it's processed, and that should be sped up, I agree. And then we figure out if they're really, if there's a legitimate case for asylum or not. Background checks. I had to do background checks. It's just ridiculous. I'll feel sorry for them just as, no, we just gotta let people in.
Lawyers from different countries down here. I've run into school teachers. They're straight up with you on why they're coming here. But then you have the others that don't want to be identified and why. Is this a child molester? Is this a murderer? What kind of crimes has he done in that country that he fled? That's a question that anybody in public safety would want to know. But yet, because of the policies of this administration, we're probably never going to know until it's too late because somebody's going to get hurt. That's what's great about being sheriffs in rural areas. When you've worked in that community for so long, they know you. It's one thing that I tell every officer that goes through an academy. Mm-hmm. Never, ever in your career compromise your integrity or your ethics, because once you compromise that, you can never get that back. So
You've been here for how long in law enforcement?
Well, I started as a reserve when I was in the Marine Corps back in 1985. For all you mathematicians out there, how many years was that?
We're coming up on almost 40.
38?
In 2 years, yeah.
We're given a gift of being able to go out and do something that's going to help somebody else. So I enjoy the fact that I can go out and do things that most careers don't allow you to do.
Okay, so these are field workers?
No, these are illegals.
Seriously?
Yes.
Can we cruise by them?
Yeah, we're going to. So the cartels are collecting their money down here under this bridge. So that bridge is actually in Mexico, but there is nothing between us and there other than this fence.
Wow. So they're super casual and look like they're walking off to school or the park or something.
You got men, women, children, infants.
So you wave to them.
Why not?
So you have a decent relationship with these people coming
Well, I'm not here to... doesn't matter where they're from.
Yeah.
We still have a duty and responsibility as far as public safety goes. Some of these people have been victimized. The children have been taken to our child facilities because they were violated along their trek to get here. You don't know what's happened to them or where they're from. You're welcome to talk to them if you want to. Find out where they're from and where they're going.
Yeah, yeah. Hola. ¿De dónde eres? Ecuador? Colombia? Buenos días. Buenos días.
Ecuador?
Colombia?
Colombia? Where are you going in the U.S.?
California, New York?
California? Huh?
New York.
Blue states.
But don't do this anymore. No more. No más Estados Unidos. Por favor. Por favor.
I love he's telling these immigrants not to litter.
Por favor. Gracias. Buena suerte.
Another one. You can zoom in right under the bridge on that car.
Okay.
So that's where they'll meet up. with the cartels, and then they'll point them in the direction.
So the cartels are right there.
Yeah.
Do they ever fire over the border?
Oh, yeah. We actually had some individuals, Border Patrol was doing special detail because we were having a bunch of kidnappings going on out here because the criminal element over there in Mexico knows that these folks have money. So as the cartels would guide them across, another criminal group would come in and kidnap them to take all their money and their jewelry. So Border Patrol was doing special details down here and got in an actual shootout with the bad guys. One died in the U.S. soil, so he ended up in our mortuary. But that happens down here quite a bit along this area because it's so lucrative. I mean, it's a cash crop per se.
Every one of these people, in their eyes, is what, $6,000,
Yeah,
$7,000,
It's quick money.
The cartels don't want to mess with you, correct? Like they wouldn't fire a bullet over.
Oh, they probably would.
Should we get in the car?
I mean, it's something we live with every day.
got scared.
Trust me, if they start shooting at me, I'm shooting back because that's still the U.S. And they know that local law enforcement doesn't tolerate it. If you get caught over here, you're going to jail, period. They already know that here, and they know that over there. The feds might let them get away with it, but local law enforcement will not. So, yeah.
I'll tell these people there's some water over here. Amigos, agua. Okay, you got.
Agua caliente.
This place will be full of people. They usually have them come over in large groups, and here's why they do that. They will inundate Border Patrol with large groups of individuals that are give-ups. So it ties up Border Patrol's resources from the field and takes them away from out east so they can get their narcotics and the other human smuggling for those that don't want to get caught across the border.
Yeah, this is another thing that I really didn't know before I started watching these videos is the strategies the cartels use. So they make money through smuggling people across, getting them to the border. And if they don't have this wristband, they can actually cause them to, oh, my dog.
So yeah, the clothes, like new white clothes, the backpack looks pretty new, not dirty. They didn't do a hard journey.
No.
And so how it works is if you get over, right, you're going to call back home and you're going to say to your friends or relatives, going to be saying, hey, here's how you do it. It's pretty easy right now.
Yep.
It just encourages more.
Yeah. They're coming here to better their life. I get that. But
so yeah, they basically smuggle a whole bunch of people at one part of the border, causing the Border Patrol agents to all go to one area. And then when they got a lot of the resources of the Border Patrol people in one area, then they can smuggle the drugs in another area. So the immigration of people is tightly coincides with the smuggling of drugs into the country. It's just a mess. This is why I'm a big believer that you just got to seal it. Like you put military men every few feet, every 100 yards at least, across thousands and thousands of miles and seal it tight. Don't let anybody across. You see a poor mother with her children, you take them to the port of entry, get them signed up, and then say, you got to wait in Mexico.
But they need to do it the legal way. I'm also a public safety servant. Anybody in my county, we respond to help. We've handled over 780 911 calls from immigrants that were left abandoned out in our remote desert, needing help.
780 last year? Or what?
Yeah. If we end up with somebody that has a medical condition down here, that takes away that EMS resource from that community to handle this down here. Federal government isn't reimbursing them. Our deputies working on overtime, much like the rest of local law enforcement, try to fill the...
I wonder how much immigrant labor Doug uses in his life and the lives of friends and family. Not too much, but I live in Tucson, so there's a lot of immigrants in Tucson, but I would say the vast majority of them that I've worked with are legal immigrants. Like, there's this idea that me or people like me are against immigrants. I am an immigrant. I'm not against immigration. I'm against illegal immigration. There has to be a system in place to make sure a country knows who is getting in and why.
The gap for Border Patrol because they're tied up with this. We've taken over 70 death investigations out in the remote desert because people died out there because they were abandoned by the cartels.
There's another place where they see people crossing. Let's see here.
You're right here in San Luis, Arizona.
they've done their job, right?
Yeah.
They got their money, so they don't care if they die in the U.S. side?
No. It's a commodity, it's not a human life.
So you're
Are
saying...
those people up here? Those are people.
Where?
Right here.
Oh, jeez.
Middle of the day.
How you guys doing? Came from India? Mumbai? Dehradun? Gujarati.
This guy for
Chicago.
Going to Chicago.
That's where you're going? Chicago? What'd you do in India?
Congress leader, Congress party's worker.
Congress Party worker.
Worked
Okay.
in Congress
You fly
in
to
India
Mexicali?
and they coming to the United
No.
States.
No, fly.
Were they on a bus?
Were you on a bus?
You have one. With a group of 9 from India.
Yeah, that's fucking
Well,
weird. I wonder if there was a smuggler who was supposed to pick them up out there, but
Might be.
that's kind of strange. I wonder if it's because they extended Title 42, but India is not a Title 42 nation.
No, it's not. They're Title 8, so I don't know why they came in through here. Usually they're down by the river.
Maybe they paid the wrong people.
Well,
So Title 42 means the U.S. can kick them out and they have to stay in Mexico. But Title 8 means they have to be able to be allowed to stay in the United States while they wait for their asylum to happen. I think that's the difference.
what's up, brother?
How you doing?
Good, you?
Not too bad.
Yeah, they were just walking down the road. It's like,
They called 911 a whole bunch of times. So.
oh, they have?
How you doing, sir?
Living the dream, right?
How you doing, sir? Peter.
Luis.
Luis, nice to meet you.
Usually they'll shoot like a group like this through here, and then through 195 they'll try to
Give
have,
another
like-
one across?
Yeah, I got on all.
So it's all about tying up you guys.
Yes, sir.
There you go. These folks were sitting here constantly down 911 to get.
Yeah, see, this is the strategy of the cartel. Since these are Title 8 immigrants, in other words, they could easily go to a border crossing and apply for asylum, and everything would have been fine and easy. But they went through this sort of more illegal route to tie up Border Patrol resources. So somewhere else along the border, drugs are being smuggled because now there's a bunch of Border Patrol guys here taking care of these people.
Get picked up. So cartels exploiting Border Patrol resources by having them do that.
Stephanie, why do you think this is fake? Like, I mean, what evidence would you say? What inkling would you have that this is staged?
That out here to get their other product through back.
This Peter Santinello guy is an independent guy. You're thinking this is staged just so he works with the sheriff and the Border Patrol to get 5.8 million views?
Where we were before.
What people or drugs?
Both. And what better way to do it than having a group 30 miles out in the middle of nowhere where you know that public safety is a priority, human life is a priority. They're going to play
Night's
off of
coming,
that.
they'd freeze out here.
Yeah. So it's all part of the game. And I'm
Okay, I want to play a part where the rubber hits the road and how the earlier comment I made that illegal immigration actually causes inflation. That causes prices to go up for U.S. citizens, like things like healthcare. Boy, that statement just triggered some people.
radio access because they carry radios with them. They carry solar panels with them when they get up there. And that's how they get paid, is by each group that gets through. So they run like a tally book.
All right, guys, it's almost the end of the daylight hours. Unfortunately, we didn't get back into Yuma. That was the goal, right? To show the hospital?
It was. Well, for you it was.
Okay.
I mean, anybody can shoot a hospital.
Okay, the story of the hospital, though. You had something to say.
Well, when you look at the ancillary impacts that a community has, part of that is the fact that Yuma County, 310,000 people came through here, give-ups. So we have one hospital that services all of Yuma County. It was a $23 million impact on their operations, having to deal with illegal immigrants that had to come into the hospital to be treated for anything from dialysis to health issues that they had brought with them that were never treated, down to the fact that it was even impacting the neonatal ICU. The hospital had to cancel appointments because they were overloaded with dealing with the immigrant crisis, and the hospital was not getting reimbursed at all from the federal government. Now, you wonder why your hospital bill is so big. Is because the hospital has to share that cost with you as a consumer to fill that gap. So you're looking at tying up not only your law enforcement resources, because we're out here having to fill that gap, but you're tying up EMS from different communities. You're tying up the hospital in bed space that the local community cannot now utilize because they're busy taking care of this issue. And with the federal government saying that it's their responsibility, well, you know, put away your personal and political rhetoric and your innuendos, get down to business, pay your bills. I'm average eating about 1.2 million a year in housing illegals that have committed state crimes and get reimbursed 5 cents on the dollar.
Okay, so Yuma County has to eat that cost.
Every citizen in Yuma has to eat that cost.
Yeah, and this is part of the reason why a lot of southern state border governors are shipping, I'll use the word shipping, because it's immigrants are a commodity, according to the cartels, shipping them north to New York or to sanctuary cities. And so they can see with their own eyes the financial burden it is to take care of these immigrants.
Remember, every one of these persons that are coming in and impacting our resources are now going into the interior of the United States. They're coming to your neighborhood, they're coming to your county, and it's going to be, it's no longer a border crisis, it's a nation crisis.
It's definitely a crisis.
It is.
That's the feel down here. Well, Sheriff, thank you.
Pleasure.
That was awesome. I'm going to finish this video on the back and go up here.
A handheld radio?
Handheld with an antenna.
Yeah, so he goes up to finish the video to see the nice sunset and finds this radio transponder or whatever.
And a solar panel.
Oh, hang on. We have Buckeye cameras out here, so it might be a repeater for it. Yeah.
That's one of your camera.
Yeah, it's not a radio, it's a repeater.
All right, guys, want to close on a few final thoughts.
I have here in my summary that what he's about to say is for left-wing liberal bleeding hearts. I forget what he says here, but I made these notes over a week ago. So if you're a left-wing bleeding heart, this is for you.
That's here. That was an absolutely unbelievable, just bizarre, crazy experience today. And I can't even capture it in words or through the camera. Obviously, this is a super political topic. It has been forever. It's been used as leverage by each party. But no matter where you stand on this thing, it is a humanitarian crisis. It is very serious. It is unsustainable. I can definitely say that. And even if, say, you're the most pro-open border person in the world, where there should be no borders and everyone should be everywhere, you'd be horrified by the sex trafficking, by the power of the cartel. It's absolutely dysfunctional what's going on here at this border. So today was just one peek in. I get it. There are many perspectives. There are hundreds of videos that need to be shown to really fully explain the situation. But today was a big eye-opener. I've done a few of these videos on the border, and the sheriff really brought us into what they are dealing with, which is absolute insanity. All right, guys, thanks for coming along on that journey.
So yeah, he has multiple videos on this topic where he talks to a lot of sheriffs and whatever. So check him out, Peter Centinello. The link's in the description of this video, I believe. Yeah, I think it's in there. Yeah. I don't know if do I want to take callers in or not. Does anybody have anything to say? My heart's bleeding, but I can't afford the healthcare to fix it. Uh-oh, you're gonna die of a cold, cold heart. You're gonna be like me, Nathan. I'll read some comments here. But what do you guys think of my idea of the homeless idea? Get them the help they need, and then put them on farms. Get them out of urban areas. Detox them, and then have them pull weeds for organic farming. I tell you, the environmentalists, the left bleeding hearts would love that. Like, you get organic food, less herbicides, a sense of dignity of accomplishing something from the homeless, free detoxation. And when they're out in the country, like, it's easier to to prevent dealers from going in there and giving them more drugs. They would lower the need for, or the incentive for illegal immigration coming in to work on farms, from the poor countries at least. And then seal up the border tight. Don't let anybody across for any reason except for port of entry. Maybe gun down the cartels. Ooh, wouldn't that be fun? What's your solution for the homeless Hotel Yugoslavia? I would love to know. Fine if you offer work, not fine if work is compelled. Well, yeah, you would offer them work. But if they say no, what are they going to do? Just die in the streets? So you give them a choice. Die in the streets or pull weeds. I would pull weeds rather than die in the streets, personally. It's not like the homeless have a lot of options to begin with, right? Work is always compelled. You don't work, you don't eat. That's just a Protestant evangelical racist thing to say. Grow weeds and sell them. Yeah. Actually, some weeds you can eat, I think. No, you can't. No, I take that back. You could use them as, like, some weeds can be used as spices, maybe? But we don't have the stomachs to eat it. Some weeds can be eaten by animals, though. Like, goats can eat a certain, what's the name of the weed they eat? Is it goats or sheep? I know in Manitoba, some farmers had goats, or is it sheep? Sheep eat a certain weed. Hotel Yugoslavia, I'm waiting for your answer. What's your suggestion what to do with the homeless? You got a solution better than mine? Seems like the problem is in high urban areas. Let's get them out of the high urban areas, number one. Offer them detox, mental help, and then give them a job. It's not poison oak or ivy. There is a certain weed in Manitoba that goats or sheep ate that no other animal ate. But I forget what it is. I think it was yellow too. Put them in an army is a not bad suggestion, but that's only for certain age groups, I guess. Like, you could also, with the homeless, after you get them detoxed, if they have a drug problem, which most of them do, you could do some testing to see what skill sets they have. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if some homeless people are brilliant if you just detox them. But they cannot be detoxed in an urban setting where the drugs are rampant. You gotta take them. It's like, you can view it as jail, I guess, if you really want to, but just taking them 1,000 miles from an urban center and onto a farm immediately helps solve that drug problem. Yeah, good point. I think farms would be better than the military. Because the military is already woke. Oh! Farmers are not woke yet. Genuinely curious. What if everyone was provided with housing regardless of their ability to work? What if? It's not sustainable. Isn't it better to, instead of spending money for housing in urban areas, you get them out of the urban areas and provide them with shelter? It doesn't have to be housing. It could be tents. I think Arizona is perfect for this. In fact, if I was the governor of Arizona, I would spearhead this initiative for the homeless. Because Arizona doesn't have tornadoes. Arizona, well, very rare, doesn't have hurricanes, doesn't have high winds. If you're going to have tent cities, Arizona is the place to do it. Southern Arizona. It doesn't get, well, for most of the year, it doesn't get cold at night. You'd have to deal with the heat. But you can detox them there in these tent cities and then have them work. So they're so tired at the end of the day, they don't, if they have mental health issues, they don't have the energy to be concerned about their mental health. They just like, they're pulling weeds. They see that, hey, look what I've accomplished. Then they hit the pillow. They eat a good hot meal. They hit the pillow and they sleep like a baby. Then they wake up early. They see a beautiful sunrise on the Yuma horizon, and they start again. Yes, labor camps in Arizona. There we go. I think this would also solve the mental health crisis of teenagers in the United States as well. If teenagers have mental health issues, have them go to farms, work with animals. Animals can work wonders with kids. Feeding horses, feeding livestock. Give them a sense of purpose, a sense of dignity that they're actually helping animals or helping other people. Then at the end of the day, they're just so tired. They have their hot meal and they hit the pillow and they sleep. You notice a lot of the mental health problems, I think, and the homeless problems started with more urbanization. So people who can't handle that urbanization go from urban to rural. How do you fix a bleeding heart? That is a great question. Now, we don't want to fix all bleeding hearts. In fact, we don't want to fix any bleeding hearts. What we want to fix is the degree of bleeding. But we need bleeding hearts in society. Because heaven knows, well, maybe heaven doesn't know if there's no God in heaven, but heaven knows that I don't want to be around people who need hugs all day and constant affirmation and constant help mentally or whatever. I mean, to me, it's just so much work. So I love people like Genuinely Curious who has a heart for the homeless. I want her to give these people hugs so I don't have to, right? So we need bleeding hearts. But the way, if you want to if you want a bleeding heart to see things objectively, you have to use the outsider test for faith for another issue that they also care about. So, for example, with the immigration issue, I feel so sorry for these immigrants. They just want a better life and they have family and kids. I mean, provide opportunity, and they're going to be a benefit to society eventually. And sure, it might take some work to get there, but you can say, fine, but there are homeless people in the United States, genuinely curious, citizens of the United States who need our help. They need our care. They need public housing. They need education. So we have a finite amount of resources. So Mrs. Bleeding Heart or Miss Bleeding Heart, if you had a choice, if you can't help everyone, who are you going to help first? Citizens of the United States or citizens of Ecuador or Russia or Cuba or India? Who are you going to help first? This is how you get to a bleeding heart. Then they'll step back and say, okay, I guess we have to help our own first. Yes. So you support me, Miss Bleeding Heart, with helping close the borders? Well, if it helps get the homeless citizens off the street, yeah, I guess I do. Yes. See, I just have a compromise. You want me to open the phones? What time is it? Yeah, I guess I can. I'm not going to wait around, though. You either call in or I do something else. Actually, yeah, genuinely curious. If you're listening, since I talked about you, you can call in first and see if I got to you there. See if I used your bleeding heart against you. I think I did. I still haven't, and Hotel Yugoslavia, I still haven't heard your answer for solve the homeless problem. I'm all ears. Peter.
Hello, it's not me. It's not the bleeding heart.
I know. We've talked lots about this issue. Anything new you want to say?
Yeah, I'm Hotel Yugoslavia, by the way.
Oh, you are? I didn't know that. Okay,
Wow,
so what's your solution for homelessness in the United States, even though you're from Yugoslavia?
So I'm gonna be provoking your intelligence, Smith. Do you think a solution for the homeless is a one sentence thing?
No, but
okay. So who are the homeless? The homeless, some of them come like one way to become homeless is to pick up a good crack cocaine habit or heroin, but most of the like if you become homeless in the USA, not everywhere in the world, you're very susceptible to develop some drug habit.
Yeah.
But that's not the reason why you become homeless. Most of the homeless, I only know my own country's research, and my sister worked in this, is mental problems. In the there's also physical problems.
So far, we're agreed.
So if you lose your leg because you fought for some idiot from Texas in Iraq, then you might end up homeless. And homelessness is very interesting in the sense that if you spend 1 or 2 years on the street, there's not really a comeback because it develops.
I'm not hearing any solutions.
The solutions are clearly not taking all those people and taking up weed or whatever that was. It's more like what you said.
Well, remember what I said? I said detox first, then pulling weeds.
It depends on so it's some of it can't be solved. It's not public housing, but it's like everyone in Haiti after the earthquake was homeless. So that you understand that without it's a choice then.
That's a little different type of homeless. That's the natural
Yes, but
disaster homeless.
it does exist in the US as well. Like, so there are two things. What do you do with the people who are on the streets and sleeping rough?
Yeah.
And the other thing is, you can't solve it like that. You have to solve why people get there. The people who have inherent mental diseases like schizophrenia, they need to be treated in a proper healthcare. And there's not that many.
So your proposal is create insane asylums?
That's not a nice way of saying it, but yes.
There you go.
For people who truly are only for there because of a drug addiction, yes, detoxification and help that way, that can work. For people who, like, you can become simply homeless and be mentally sick in a few years. If you get a divorce, you lose your house, you're a man, you're 55, and you're a physical worker. You never had a problem, but now you have nothing.
Yeah,
You
for those
never-
people, maybe they should pull the weeds, and for the mentally ill, we put them in the insane asylums.
for them, yes, that like education, on different levels. Like, there should be much better free education and programs for that. And it's not about a bleeding heart. It's for your daughter, because people who live rough, they don't really follow the rules of society.
Right.
This is why these drugs cannot be solved by raising the punishment, because if you're a heroin addict, you don't really read the law. Is it 20 years now or is it 15? You don't give an F. It's not how it works. That's not how you treat it.
Okay, but let's get practical. Like, I agree with most of what you said, if not all. But the thing is, we got in California right now, we have, I think, 30,000 homeless people. I'm not sure if that's just in LA or if that's all in California. It's probably more than that in all of California. What do you practically do starting tomorrow?
It's what I would take your recipe for the when last time you said that if just one serial killer is amongst the immigrants, then there should be no immigrants. I do that with the Republicans. So let's get rid of all of them. Then we can have a nice USA and have public finance programs and politics that are not based on stereotypes and simple solutions, but there can be done research. Like, look at Sweden or England, where I am, how this is treated. And England is big shit within Europe in that. But instead of us talking about it, I mean, I have a little bit of knowledge, but let's pretend I'm an average person in this. Do research, try out programs. Nobody knows the solutions, and that's what the Finnish and the Swedish and England and France does. They try out things because nobody knows, and what works. So they do it with 1,000
Okay,
people.
your answer so far has been we need to do research. We need to look at
Science
it.
is the answer.
Yeah,
Like,
but
you have-
all this takes time and decades, even, or years.
That's I'm sorry, but tough luck. Like,
No tough luck. We got people defecating in the streets. We got people dying in the streets, United States. We got.
Well, I mean, you have enough money.
So what do you do with those people tomorrow?
I don't know if you can.
Yes, you can.
You cannot do anything other than mass murder in one day. That you can do, but
No, you don't even have to go that far.
I don't know. Like you're saying that, where are those camps? Where are those tents? Where are those things? Not nowhere tomorrow. So it has to. Like, if you put up with it for decades, then you have to put up with it for a bit.
No, you don't have to put up with it.
Okay, what's your solution then?
You already know my solution.
But those camps don't exist that you talk about, so that's not even gonna work tomorrow.
Well, you could probably erect tents. I personally know farmers with huge, like, I'd say 10,000 acres or more, who have a huge demand for workers. But
That's my solution, but it takes time. So in Hungary,
that solution is way faster than yours. I mean, you could get people on Greyhound buses.
Just work is not enough. You're gonna create a slave camp, and you're gonna create more problems for nobody.
Why do you use the phrase slave camp? Like, what's the use of these?
Because if you give people with less rights than normal, so they can't leave, human nature is even the best farmer.
Okay, this is fun. I like this.
Okay, I
What is worse to you? Someone dying in the streets in their own feces from a heroin overdose, or going to a slave camp in Yuma and pulling weeds?
and so
What's worse?
are the two options, right?
Yeah,
Well,
those are the
it's
two
not-
options on the table.
Okay. So it's like it's just as asking me if I want to rape an 8-year-old boy or a girl. Which one do I choose? I don't want any of those.
You think going to a farm?
No, I'm not gonna choose.
I'm even calling it a slave camp because I'm appealing to the language you're using. But
I'm sorry about that. That was too much. But I'm okay. So some sort of basic housing. Yeah, I mean, we're not in disagreement. I just thought you mean tomorrow, but the solution that I've seen that works is actually very similar to what you do. Resocialize people, rehabilitate, I think is the English word, is actually done in nature and camps and like that in Hungary.
Yeah,
but it's and work actually is a therapeutic.
Yes,
but
you sound like you're agreeing with me.
Yes, but you said tomorrow, and I've seen it working, and it takes a lot of time, man. And it's not even so much money. It's
If you get the government out of it, actually, you can do things very quickly.
Oh, if you involve,
like, I bet you could set up a camp that could house 5,000 people within a couple of weeks.
That doesn't but you need to do it in with government certified scientists who know what they are doing, not a farmer. You can't expect a farmer.
Well, yeah, you're right. You would need healthcare workers there that can help these people.
And I don't care who, you're not gonna get into this government or not government. I don't care, but it's a lot of skill. It's a lot of skill to take a person back.
I understand,
and you can't give it to a farmer.
But I think the first step is you got to get them off the streets and away from the urban setting, and
that's absolutely
out in nature. In fact, but instead of pulling weeds, I think feeding horses.
That's not only an agreement between us, but that is actually a working solution. But it's not about if you're gonna try, if someone is mentally ill and lost their, let's pick a veteran. A lot of Vietnam veterans, Iraq veterans are on the streets. They had no problems before, but now on the street they lose all their
dignity.
Yes, and it's not something you can just walk it off.
Right, and this is why I think my solution is better than, let's say, the socialist solution of give them housing, give them food, shelter, clothing, all that. Because
I describe the socialist solution.
Because that doesn't give them dignity.
It does. We can have a competition who hates Stalin more. I think you're far behind me because I come from a country that was destroyed by Stalin. But what it did for Hungary, and I have to bitterly admit that, is that by blood and unacceptable and but what they did achieve something. They raised the farmers who had no land in Hungary and the workers who had nothing in Hungary, who were all sort of homeless. So most of them had a swivel, shovel. And anyway, and by giving them housing and dignity and money and putting them to unis without any merit.
How does giving people free stuff giving them dignity?
Because when you don't have food, that takes away all your dignity. When you live day by day, compared to that, when you feel not hungry watched.
I disagree strongly with that. I mean, when you give people,
and I know how it happened.
I understand, but when you give people stuff, at some point, in the very beginning, they're desperate. You have to give them enough so they can live and survive. But if that's all you're doing, you're actually removing their dignity. You're treating adults like babies. You're like, here's my breast, start sucking on.
Right. That never happened. Of course, they were not given a golden palace, and it's just to lift up someone from the people live in traps in America a lot more than current day Hungary, for example, and it's in a desperate situation. But because of that communist period, We're going back there because we have fascist dictatorship, but people that can live in these traps that they can never get out of if you just lift them up. Can I inject something? We're a lot more biological and animalistic than you presume here. A lot less philosophical.
I'm very much, humans are like rats.
Just if you have heating, hungry is cold. If you have heating and food and a roof, and you know that you're going to have it tomorrow, it changes your mentality. And if you don't have that, you're a different person. Things like if you dress in a certain way, like not with holes, and
I agree with you, Peter, that it actually helps you feel less worried about the future. But
it's dignity. It's not dignity. Doesn't just come from winning the Olympics.
But we ran this experiment in at least in the United States with giving people free stuff. Like the prime example is Native Americans in the United States and in Canada. On reservations, the government pays for everything. Everything.
Native Americans were persecuted until the 1970s, killed by till the 1970s. So if you talk about immigrants, why don't you come back to Europe? You know what I mean? Like Native Americans.
Peter, let me finish my thought with
that's really, really rough to say that you give them free stuff. No, you illegally live on their land.
No, we fought a war and won.
Oh, right, by conquest.
Yeah, there you go.
Then Arizona is Mexico, right?
And the Native Americans were fighting against each other. It's not like there's one monolith of like.
I understand.
Yeah.
The Aztecs are coming to Arizona.
So okay, but let me finish my point with the Native Americans. The suicide, I think this is correct. The suicide rate is highest amongst Native Americans in the United States per capita. And yet, if they live on the reservation, their food, shelter, clothing, even snowmobiles, ATVs are paid for by the federal government. I think that, at least in Canada, that's correct. And I think it's also correct here in the United States.
I mean, if they get snowmobiles, I don't know what to complain
about.
And
their suicide rates are the highest. Why is that?
And say that it's because they get snowmobiles or free stuff.
It's because they have no dignity. When you don't work for something, you don't get the dignity.
You remember the 1970s like I do. We're old. It wasn't 2 centuries ago.
Right.
In living memory, they were persecuted and killed. And yes, you can spoil someone to suicide. I don't know if that's the case, but you can. But just the problem with giving free stuff is not inherent. It's what you give. Like, it's how you give. If you say that, go F yourself, here's a snowmobile, that's not dignity. Like, yeah, and then these are not the 2 options, that to give people free stuff, Lamborghinis and whatever, or nothing what you do now. Like, there is skillful healthcare overseen, you know what I'm trying to say. Like, there's scientific ways when you give free stuff. But you can look at it as an investment. A lot of people are capable.
I agree with that.
So, and if you have like a natural, like if you don't like the word free stuff, then I don't know, how did you eat when you were a kid? Like when your mom gave you a
I compared it to treating people like babies. Yeah, you're dependent on your parents.
Yes, but if you're homeless, I think it's fair and square.
But the bottom line is, like, I don't disagree with everything you're saying, and I'm sure you don't disagree with everything I'm saying. But the bottom line is, there's real people on the streets today who are living, pooping, taking drugs on the streets, desperate, close to death. And I'm the type of person to say this needs to change now. Not 5 years after research.
And you know what? You might be surprised, but we even agreement more, because not only I don't like the vilification of drug addicts, homeless people, immigrants, Jews, women, trans people, but I also don't agree with this charity approach of bleeding hearts and all that. The problem is the US politics, that everything is this nonsense. Because no, you don't, like, you're right. Nobody wants to just give away stuff. Nobody, politics shouldn't be based on emotion. Let it be hate, Republican side, like, or fear more like, or this uninformed love, like let's save all the puppies type of thing, the bleeding heart. None of it is, it's nonsense. I agree with that part as well. I would say that in general, you have to take, I don't know this word in English. You have to take a skill thing. Please help me. You have to do things that need skill and science out of politics. So it shouldn't be like a question of people sleeping rough and doing damage to themselves and society shouldn't be a political issue. And like, look at that documentary that you showed was a prime example of, like, that would never fly on the BBC. It didn't have two sources. It wasn't journalism.
What I just played earlier?
Yes. The guy was showing euros, and that wasn't 50 euros, by the way. That's how it looks. And all that. And the journalist, if it would be a journalist, not an idiot, would have asked, what is the percentage of people coming through and the number of passports? Is it everybody throwing away, like he said, or is it 1 in 100, 1 in 1,000? What's the, you know what I mean? Like,
he didn't say everybody was throwing it away, and the whole idea was the video is.
They didn't. It was all conjecture. It might be true that everybody does, but he didn't even ask the question. It was nonsense.
My goodness, Peter, this is a guy, an ordinary guy who's traveled the world. I don't know if you've looked into his bio. He's not even claiming to be a journalist. He's not claiming to be, but he's if you watch his videos, he has like hundreds of them. If you watch it, you can tell he's a stand-up guy. He's just a guy who's wanting people to see.
Exactly as interesting as I am when I talk about your favorite food. You don't tell me, but I'm going to write a book about it because I can come up with something based on that you wear a black shirt and whatever. It's not like there's science, which is journalism, and there is nonsense, which I make up about what could be Doc's favorite food.
He's basically doing what you're doing right now, just talking.
Yes,
yeah.
But I'm at least not saying that I'm a journalist, not presenting.
He never claims to be a journalist.
And by the way, what did I say that I cannot back up? How many times I said I don't know compared to them?
It boggles my mind that you're actually poo-pooing on him for not asking the questions you want asked. I mean,
no, not like in general, like it's a basic thing that you want to know. Is it really everybody? Is it 90%? Like, otherwise it's meaningless. And I'm not suggesting like an American would that, or if I'm questioning it, I state the opposite. No, it's an honest, I don't know. And he didn't even want to know. That's the difference.
No, this is nuts to me. Absolutely crazy what you're saying.
Your favorite politician, John McCain.
You're basically doing Monday morning quarterbacking, saying he should have asked that, he should have asked this. This is just a guy, a normal guy like me and you, who's going on a ride along with a sheriff. And there's questions that pop in his mind and questions that don't.
It shouldn't be presented as a report.
Well, it's not a report. It's a YouTube video.
Yeah, but then it's just like hey, you should believe in Jesus because last night he spoke to me in my sleep.
I think you're upset with him because he's effective.
That's true, though. And that's what I don't like overall about the American politics, that everybody does it on all sides. It's all emotion, bias, stereotypes. That's why you get called racist. That's why, like, it's nonsense from A to Z. Like, it's not just like, I don't not like what he actually said. I don't like his method. It's unacceptable. Even if he would have said the opposite, it's like this bleeding heart thing.
Life doesn't work like you want it to work. Life is not like...
Tune into the BBC and you'll see that it does. It can. Life doesn't have to be a soap opera.
Why are you even comparing him to the BBC? He's not like the BBC in any way. He's a guy. He's holding the camera himself. I mean...
Ignore him, but in general, that's the melody of what I'm trying to say, is that the solution is take these nonsense.
And don't tell me the BBC isn't biased.
It is biased, but it has a standard.
Yeah.
it will never. You're right, but it's because now we have 13 years of Tories. Let's not get into that. My point is that
Okay, this is the last word because I got someone waiting.
Okay, I'll go by. All I wanted to say is that objective things help, and it would help you because you get rid of the bleeding heart nonsense. And anyway, thankful for your patience and
Watch
when I
watch a little bit more of this guy. The link's in the description, and read up on him. Like you'll see, he's just a guy like me who finds interest in this topic and is going to talk to people. He's not trying to set up data for scientific studies or anything like that.
But then he should just go to a cafe and have a nice time because it has no meaning.
No, it has meaning. He's there on site. He's at the border. He saw those people come across. He's talking to real people who do this for a living.
And cross whatever. It's worse than he knows less than he wouldn't have been there. Like if you see, this is the problem with personal experience. Before I went to the UK, I knew more about the politics of this country since I'm here, because now I'm biased with emotional experiences. Before I could just look at the data, the GDP, the maps and everything. Data is data, and emotions and like, oh, but it was hot that day, so it was horrible. But it was a nice day, so...
Man, you're more dead inside than I am.
let's end up on an agreement.
Okay, nice talking to you.
Yeah, bye.
See ya. Man, seriously, I think Peter's more dead inside than I am. Like this guy who made this video is like, he's actually trying to be friends with the immigrants and talk to them, ask where they're from. I mean, and Peter's saying, no, you should be at a cafe, and because now he's emotionally attached and involved. I mean, come on. I hope you're not as dead inside as that last guy was.
I disagreed with him, because even as a bleeding heart liberal, I watched that video and a few of the guys' other videos a couple of weeks back. I do think it did a little bit to move me on some of these issues. Now, I agree with what the caller was saying about, obviously you can't just take these anecdotes as representative of everything going on and all that. But I do think that listening to what these sheriffs have to say on the ground, and the kind of like problems that they're facing, the ways that they're seeing money spent, the way that the politics is affecting them, I think it shifted my views a little bit on
yeah. And if you get enough anecdotal evidence, you've got a scientific study. I mean,
yeah, exactly. It's indicative evidence, right? You shouldn't like base your view off of it, but it has to do something for you. And I thought he was coping a little bit there. He was like, you can't trust this guy. There's got to be something up, because
he's from Europe. He open border stuff. Like he's nuts.
That's why we voted Brexit.
So what would you do if you were president of the United States? What would you do with the homeless starting tomorrow?
So my suggestion is that the US invade all the other countries of the world, so everywhere is America, and then there's no illegal immigration problem.
And colonize the whole world.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then it takes time to get everybody to think American, right?
Not at the barrel of a gun. You can think American pretty quick. In terms of, honestly, actually, I don't know what the hell you do about like those sorts of problems. Like, I don't envy any politician that's making decisions at that scale. Maybe what my decision would actually be would be to give states more power to make the decisions for themselves about what they want to do on their borders.
Yep, that's a good suggestion. Yeah. Reed,
it's going to differ. Yeah, I know Reed. I've had 5 guys with Reed in London.
Yeah. He recently moved out of Hollywood in LA.
To Texas?
Yep. No, he's moving to Florida.
Oh, okay.
And I asked him why. He came to visit me. I asked him why. He said one of the top reasons was the homelessness in LA.
Right.
And I tell you, if enough people like Reed, who is like far upper middle class, start leaving, if they don't get their act together, they're going to lose their tax source, their tax revenues, and then things are just going to be a death spiral. They have to start cleaning up the city.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of problems there, right? Like housing prices are crazy though.
Yeah.
People leave. Maybe
We need a
housing
good
prices come
depression.
down. You get less. Yeah. Well, that's kind of what's going on a little bit at the minute.
Well, no, and we're not even in a recession yet.
Not quite. Well, it depends how you define it, right?
Well,
like, obviously,
technically, the way
yeah.
you define it, we're not.
Well, like that, I think there are different ways that different
2 quarters in a row of negative GDP.
I know that one. But some people will include things like consumer price index and things like that, right? And according to those sorts of different.
Yeah, it's coming down, but like I said earlier, I don't know if you heard me, but when inflation hits, prices go up, go up, go up. And even if the rate of inflation is coming down, which is what's happening, we still have inflation. So you still have this baseline price still going up. We actually need deflation. Prices of houses need to go down, not up, so people like you can afford a home. Interest rates need to go down.
It's not going to happen
up.
for me.
Yeah, well, for anybody, but like
we're just not building enough in the UK. In the UK, that's a big problem. So you just can't meet demand, basically.
Like I don't know how
in the US
anybody can afford a house at 8% with the housing prices the way they are in the UK and the US. Like, what's the mortgage rate?
So the thing is,
in UK,
it's I think the interest rate if you took out a mortgage now is probably going to be about 4 or 5%.
Oh, that's it. That's not bad.
Yeah. So, but it's not as bad as 8, but it's still pretty bad compared to 0 or 1%. And if you're looking at a house price of 500,000 over 40 years or something, that's quite a lot of interest that you're paying off. It just depends where you want to buy, right? So London property prices are insane. So the interest on that insane lump sum is just like a large cash amount for anyone, really. Whereas if you're buying somewhere else, something that's a bit cheaper, maybe the interest's a bit more manageable. Yeah.
I think the Federal Reserve should either just raise interest rates really hard, really fast and get it over with, or like I think taxation is more regressive than progressive. So, or just really tax the rich hard. I mean, sock it to them hard. And I'm a right winger. I'm saying this.
When you say the rich, though, you mean like the super rich, not just like people.
Well, that's the thing. Like, if you just do the super rich, you're not going to have a big effect. You got to actually start targeting upper middle class, like even people like me. So I get scared and said, no. I tell my wife, "You're not going to Costco today. No way. Everybody's staying home, and we're playing card games and eating mac and cheese." Like, that's how severe it has to be in order to get inflation in control. You got to basically create a recession.
I think that you're definitely seeing a bit of that go on in the UK, but I agree that as you look at people who are in like the upper middle class and above, that you still see lots of spending and stuff. But it's just weird. The UK is kind of a unique case because our economy is very weird. Well, the US is a unique case as well. So it's hard to say what the US should do versus what the UK should do because they're both very different places. The dollar is a lot more powerful than the pound. We've got a unique situation with Brexit and stuff. So I don't know. You
lean communist, right?
It depends what you mean in terms of
politically, economically.
Marxist. Not in terms of the Marxist criticism of capitalism and the labor theory of value, right, or something like that. There are things I'm going to agree with, but in general, I'd actually say I'm probably pretty centrist.
Oh, really? Because I was going to suggest you should immigrate to the United States and then live with the Hutterites or Mennonites or Amish.
Yeah, something I'd consider actually is I definitely would consider moving to the United States. But I think something I could do is just try to earn as much money as possible and then give as much of that as I can to like charities who would spend it effectively as well. That's an option.
Like the Pinecreek channel.
Like the Pinecreek channel, yeah. No, like give directly, for example.
Or Caption Christianity. He's a 401c or whatever.
Yeah, and he's in need as well. It's always
yeah.
there's Disney holidays coming up, so it's a time of need.
His wife needs.
He lives
new
in a
clothes.
nicer house than I could ever really expect to afford in the UK. Like that would be so expensive in the UK. The amount of he got a front garden, a back garden.
Yeah, it's too bad he lost his big donor.
That's like 2 years ago now. I don't know how he's surviving.
If there's any Christians listening who are thinking of getting into apologetics, don't. Like,
it's a terrible career choice.
Terrible career choice.
But to be fair, he's making the most of it with all this, like the demons. Now he's got UFOs. Like there's endless because there's no evidence at all for the UFOs. There's just room for endless speculation about them. Are they demons, aliens from another planet? What type of spacecraft do they use? Is the government hiding them? Is the Pope hiding them? Like, he could just go on, right? There's endless podcast episodes. So.
Yeah, and people eat that up. What do you think I should shut down my religious channel?
Depend. It's up to you, right? Like,
I know, but I'm asking your opinion.
Why would you shut it down? Well, what would your main reason be for shutting it down?
Because I'm sick and tired of reviewing videos like Caption Christianity would put out. I'm sick and tired of having the same conversations over and over and over.
Just take a break from it. Like, you don't have to delete it. I know you're the type of guy I think you're a pretty all or nothing guy, right? So you want to delete it, but that's
what my wife says.
Leave the option, right, and just give it a break for a while. Do something else.
Yeah, I would never delete it like that David Wood guy did.
Yeah,
but
there's probably incriminating evidence in something he said, though. So
that you could be onto something there. But someone suggested that I just focus on trying to get big name apologists or Christians on, or Muslims, and talk to them.
It depends what your goals are. Obviously the channel's changed over time. I think that something that happens less often is like those early styles of interviews that you had, where you would get, like some of the bigger name apologists on, and they'd kind of like talk to you for an hour or something. I know it's more difficult now because the strategy that they've come up with to deal with that is to basically be like as soon as your name's mentioned, oh, you don't want to talk to that guy, he's not open-minded or whatever, right? But yeah. I think there was some real interesting content there, like the thing you did where you had the trans woman on to talk to Trent Horn, for example. That was that was Mike Winger. Oh, Mike Winger. Yeah, sorry, not Trent. Yeah. Or just like some of those, like the Randall Rouser interview, the classic. Like, I think just getting those people on for an hour to talk with you was very entertaining and a lot of dopamine. And then you went into like the phase of more like video reviews for a long period of time.
Yeah. I haven't done that in a long time though. Like, it's all just interviews now.
But like the call-in style interviews, right? Not the like almost not pre-planned, but like there's going to be one guy who's got scheduled, a profile to defend. Yeah.
I should do that strictly. It's just scheduled interviews. What did you think of the spat between me and Matt Dillahunty?
I'm not seeing the whole thing, but I mean, I know what it's going to be about. I think that you've got valid points, right? I think I'm sort of politically on his side more in terms of the belief about how trans people.
You don't want to kill trans people like I do.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
But I think that you've got some valid criticisms there, and I just think that people like Matt Dillahunty just have massive blind spots when it comes to the way that they think about things. Like it's a very religious type of atheism, right? It's very like community driven, and it's about ostracizing people who disagree and stuff like groupthink. So
yeah, I actually find it more fun to beat up on fellow atheists than Christians now.
I think that's your personality type though as well, right?
Like I feel like I've already conquered the Christians and the Muslims.
Yeah.
Like it's like job done. Next.
Maybe you should try and make it make sense. You should go back to Christianity and try and make it make sense. But still, no, I don't. Or the only thing I'd be worried about is you going down the proper like right-wing rabbit hole of Steve Bannon shit. Like you've not been on board with the UFOs and stuff. You've not gone James Lindsay. You've not gone Peter Boghossian. So you're walking that line. But
well, hang on. I agree with the first two people you said, but what has Peter Boghossian done that I would disagree with?
So I think that some of the people he's been in, some of the way he's been framing, well, actually, maybe you'd agree with it, to be fair, actually, because you're kind of doing some of the same things sometimes on your politics channel, like trying to be inflammatory and stuff like that, rather than
it's more fun.
Yeah. So maybe you'd agree with that.
I actually think I've heard Peter say something that I strongly disagree with, unlike like you did a review on Jordan Peterson once, and I go, yeah, that's horrible. There's a lot of things Jordan Peterson says I disagree with.
Yeah.
But Peter is actually like, Peter's like me in the sense that he really doesn't make any claims. Most of his videos, he's just asking questions. Well, no, he does make some claims. He says that
like Viktor Orban's great.
That the woke social justice movement is a piece of dog shit. I think that's the claim he makes.
Critical race theory, conspiracy theory. Basically, there's also a lot of, I think he would believe things about things that have happened around critical race theory that aren't true as well. Like maybe kid going to the toilet in litter trays in schools and stuff like that. The other thing is, like for example, like he said the other day, the conceptual penis was the most cited paper in gender studies, right? And that's just not true. It's got something like, it's got a few hundred citations, but then there's a lot of other famous books and things.
But you got to be careful. He might have meant in a certain publication or something like.
I don't think he did. The way he said it was very chest-thumpingly self-congratulatory, right? And it's also in a pay-to-play journal, right? And as a good scientist, you would say, well, that's not demonstrating your point if you publish it in a and a lot of the citations are things like how misinformation is used to manipulate public opinion in the modern world, right? So it's citing the paper, but it's citing the paper to make the point that what Lindsay and Boghossian are doing there is actually manipulating the audience by getting it published in a pay-to-play journal and stuff like that, right? So
he actually asked me to come on his channel for an interview, and I haven't responded yet. But
it'd build your profile, but I think
I really don't know what we would talk about.
I think you just want to be wary of the audience capture, right? Because if you get a lot of followers who have a particular political leaning, maybe you're very good at resisting that, but it's gonna, you're gonna get the reward feedback from making certain types of content and things. And that's
because I actually prefer the majority of my viewership not liking me. I find it more exhilarating.
Yeah. Driven by the conflict.
Oh, I love when people hate me. What world would it be when people don't mind being hated? I mean, so many problems would
communism.
Be solved. That would lead to communism?
I mean, that's what it's like being a I don't know. I can't solve like all the problems that you talk about, right? I think that you're very good at highlighting. I don't think you're right on everything, but I do think that you're very good at highlighting like when people are being hypocritical, right? And they're thinking about some of these things. So.
Yeah, and I agree I'm not right about everything. Like the Wichita Home Offices, that's 98.3%, so it's close, but
yeah. Give or take a decimal point.
Oh. Well, nice talking to you, Nathan.
Yeah, no problem. See
Take
you
care.
around. Bye.
Good one. It's weird to hear me curse. Shit is not a swear word. It is what makes the plants grow. It's plant food. So is carbon dioxide. It's also plant food. People think CO2 emissions is a pollutant. No, it's food for plants. That's fact. Remember your photosynthesis class in grade 6? Once you go the straw man route, there's no coming back. Peter has chosen the path. Oh, Matesh. That comment's like you got like this broomstick up your butt. Like, relax. I've sworn, I've said some really bad swear words. I've said the F word a couple times on my religious channel. But my mom says that word all the time, and it's funny when my wife and kids are there visiting. Because my wife is like the quintessential conservative evangelical Christian. If you relax, the broomstick will go in deeper. Yeah, you might like it. Matesh, why don't you call in? Dr. Patel, you must be a doctor, right? Oh, they're stereotyping. I've never known a Patel that's not a doctor. Wouldn't it be funny if he is a doctor? Tell me the truth, Matesh. Are you a doctor or not? In the live stream, are you a doctor? Or are you the son of a doctor? I bet you are. We should run. We should have place the bets. He's an IT? Oh, okay. What? And was that right? Are you a PhD doctor or MD doctor? Because I was thinking MD, but I'll take the win for PhD as well. Oh, you're a chemist. How can you be a chemist and lean left? I mean, what's wrong with you? What kind of chemistry are you in? Oh, if you are a leaning left chemist, that means you're in biochem or organic chem. You can't be a hard chemist. Yeah, mere PhD. So you know a lot about one thing and nothing about most things. I'd rather have 2 masters than 1 PhD. I am a surgeon. Oh, see, Rick is a surgeon. I'm on record as saying most doctors. No, I'm not on record saying most doctors. I'm on record as saying a lot of doctors. I said this on Stephanie Helm's show the other day. I'm on record saying a lot of doctors are idiots. And the reason why I say that is because I've taught a lot of doctors. I've taught a lot of doctors, nurses, psychologists, who at the time were becoming nurses. Actually, no, some of them were already nurses. I've taught them chemistry, physical science. I've seen their tests. I've seen how they can think. I've seen them in the lab. And trust me when I tell you this, a lot of them, all they know how to do is memorize things, and they're good at it. They know how to memorize things. They know how to follow protocols. But to get them to think outside the box, no, a lot of doctors are idiots. So forgive me if I don't bow down to them with whatever they have to say. Please, Father, I have sinned. I will not just blindly believe what a doctor says because they're good memorizers. Now you know my bias. I'm dating a doctor and she makes me not talk about politics. Yeah, because you can't think out of the box, right? They smart, but they ain't that smart. Yeah. I bet you that if you talk to hard science people like me who have run labs, being teaching assistants for pre-med students, they will tell you the same thing. Is there anybody here who's in the hard sciences in graduate school or no undergraduate school who've taught pre-meds who can vouch for me? Like I remember this time, one of the protocols, it was a organic chem lab, and the instruction said get, 20 mils of something, get 20 mils of hydrochloric acid or whatever. And like the pre-med students, should I use this speaker or this speaker? And they're like one's slightly bigger than the other. I'm just like looking at it. Either one works. Just get 20 mils, okay? I mean, they were so. I guess you need people like that are so anal about following the rules and trying to have things. Okay, give you a little sense of where I'm coming from, why I say this. One of my first jobs was working at Aerst Organics. It's a pharmaceutical company that extracted estrogen out of horse urine. True story. I was the taste tester. That's a joke. But they had protocols on how to extract estrogen out of horse urine, and this for menopausal pills for women. So they had this long protocol. So I'm a new chemist out of school, and they had 40 steps, 50 steps protocol on how to do it. And I would always do my work pretty quickly, so I was done with lots of time to spare. So I started experimenting. So I would take a vial of horse urine, 2 vials of horse urine, and I would run one using the protocol, and then one running a protocol that I would make up or I would modify from the existing protocol. So a simple example would be centrifuge for 15 minutes. I would centrifuge for 10, and then see if the results changed. Did the whole thing? No, results didn't change. Then another one was use. Let's sit for whatever. It's like baking, really. Let's sit for 5 minutes. Well, what happens if I let it sit for 2 minutes? And basically, over the course of 6 months, I whittled down the protocol to be more efficient, and I cut the whole time of extraction 50%, 50. Okay? After the end of 6 months, I took the results that I documented to my supervisor, who was also a chemist. And I said, look, this protocol is way too inefficient. And I've run... Anyhow, I gave him my results. He said, thanks, I'll get back to you. I didn't hear anything from him for about a month. He comes back to me and says, we took this to the head office, they ran your protocol, and they agree. It works just as fine, so we're going to use your protocol. Mind you, I'm 23 years old, okay? Then, a little while later, they had layoffs. They laid off half the chemists, and they promoted me because of my new protocol. I basically cost the jobs of half the chemists. True story. Then I end up leaving Canada and moving to Arizona. But my point of telling that story is this. A pre-med medical doctor would never have done what I did. They would say, no, here's the rules. I must follow them. Step A, step B, step C. A lot of them that I interacted with in undergrad, this is the way they think. They can't think, well, what if we change that? What if we change that? What would happen? They don't think like scientists. They just think of cooks or glorified plumbers. This is how you take off a pipe. Lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. That's racist, Pinecreek. Reflective Journey must be behind when I said Patel must be a doctor. Pinecreek, you're spot on. I was pre-med and everything you're saying is true. There you go. So it's fact now. Doug's story's evidence capitalism will fail once enough people are automated out. You could be right, Anthony. Anthony, could be right. Look at Pew Research, a wider ideological gap between more and less educated adults. I'm not sure what that's in reference to. Like, my daughter's really scared about AI and how it's going to take over the movie industry. But AI is nowhere close, not even close to like having someone be a true thespian on stage. I mean, behind the lens. Education correlation with political leanings. I once did research on SAT scores by political leanings, and it was mixed data. It depended on the state that I was looking at, but I could find you data where if you lean right, you have higher SAT scores than if you lean left. But in other states, no. So it's like, surgeons don't have to be smart; they just have to be accurate. I'd say the opposite for psychiatrist. Oh, no, don't get me started on psychiatrists. Surgeons have to be able to think on the fly and expect the unexpected. They have to be able to, with real life in their hands. Like, I had knee surgery. And my knee surgery was scheduled to be only an hour long, roughly. And it ended up being close to 3 hours long because they had problems. And the doctor told me the problems. I can't remember exactly what the problem was, but just the way he explained it to me, like, he had to improvise, he had to go outside the box. Like, if you're a typical MD doctor who's not a surgeon, like, they would be frozen at this point. Excuse me, this knee surgery, but that's not on the list. I mean, it's not on the list. How am I going to solve this problem? It's not on the list. I should have been a surgeon. I would have been a great surgeon. I got a steady hand. I don't get anxious. I don't get stressed. I don't get... But surgeons have terrible hours. They can't golf on Mondays. I never said all doctors, genuinely curious. Actually, my surgeon was telling me that, like, if you see some knee surgeries, they're like using a hammer and they're like boom, boom, trying to get the bone to have an indentation to suture something on. I mean, that would be a great U.S. Marine Corps. Yeah, suck it up, soldier. You got free public housing here. Life is great. You got free food, soldier. Life is great. I said never? Never what? I should go see a psychiatrist just for fun. Is anybody a psychiatrist in the live stream chat here? Who would love... I can even lie down right now. We can have a session. Doug, if money wasn't a factor, what would you do with your life? Wow. Professional poker player? That would get boring fast, though, I think. I don't know. No, I mean a real psychologist. Okay, this is going to sound absolutely horrible what I'm about to say, okay? But it's kind of facetious, but kind of not. So take it with a grain of salt, okay? I'm about to say something, but take it with a grain of salt. I'm not being totally serious, but still somewhat facetiously serious, if that makes sense. I would love to give a psychologist or a psychiatrist a mental breakdown. Okay, that's out of my system. Just to show that they're not in control of their own psychology. I got Doug to say, I don't know, my life's complete. I say I don't know a lot, I think. Definitely a psychopath. No, I've been tested, Nathan. I'm not a psychopath. I'm not even a sociopath. My mother had me tested. I'm fine. Honestly, I'm fine. I'm fine, okay? I just think it would be... I mean, just to show how subjective that science is, like... Do you understand the difference between psychology and a psychiatrist? Yeah, a psychiatrist is an MD. A psychologist is not necessarily, right? One prescribes drugs, one doesn't. I would donate to see a psychologist come on live. Yes. Any psychologists out there? Isn't Shannon Q a psychologist? Or No, she's not a psychiatrist. But was I right? Genuinely curious on the difference? Psychiatrist is MD, prescribes drugs. Psychologist, not necessarily. I conflate the two. Well, maybe I do, but I know the difference, right? Either way, I don't have high respect for either. Now, don't get me wrong. I think they're needed in society. She did a course in psychology. Oh, so did I. I use psychology all the time with my dog. You want a treat? Instant salivation. Humans are not much different. I asked Nathan if he wants a treat. He starts to salivate. I think that's a big difference between me and the average person, though, is I'm really, truly a naturalist. I'm not a pretend naturalist. So I truly view myself and everyone here as animals. Meaning that when you press a little button and if it gets you a treat, you're going to be more likely to press that button. So in that sense, psychology is very useful. You can manipulate people to get them to do what you want or to change their behavior. So yes, psychology is needed. But the people that it's harder to do that with, like psychologists would be out of luck. How many psychiatrists are needed in third world countries? I see what you did there, man in charge. A lot of the problems we have in the United States are very much first world nation problems. This is why I think the solution to homelessness is de-urbanization, is putting them on farms, getting them to work hard manual labor. And for some of you flag-waving phonies who spend all day eating granola and hugging trees, you think, oh, that's slave labor. Call it what you want, but I think it works. Getting out in nature, fewer people, more animals, more trees, more land, pulling weeds, feeding animals, you're working so hard that you don't have time to worry about your problems. Oh, poor me, nobody loves me, poor me, I don't have the car I want, I don't have a house I want, oh, poor me. No, you're working so hard, but you got to work hard at something that you can see tangibly that you're making progress. That's the key. Pulling weeds does that. And it's so simple. Anybody can do it if you have two hands. And work shall set you free. Yeah. He also has the same perspective on trans people as you do, but he's very careful how he talks as he doesn't want to lose his job. Who are you talking about, Tim? Raleigh, California is perfect to send all of LA's homeless to, just enough negative stimuli to turn your life around. Actually, there's a lot of big farms in California. I should maybe get in contact with the governor of California. What's his name? Tell him my idea. I wonder if anybody's ever said that idea to him before. Get the homeless people off the streets and onto farms. Send you back to Mexico. My best friend who's a psychologist. Oh, I see what you're talking about. Yeah, unfortunately I don't have that problem about worrying about losing my job. Yeah, I made that exact point, Pops BJD. You get a 2-for-1 deal with my idea. You solve homelessness, you give people dignity and at least a pathway to, stop pulling weeds and doing something else, and you decrease the incentive for immigrants to come across trying to do cheap labor. And by the way, as I said earlier, I think this also applies to kids, teenagers who are struggling mentally. I think there's nothing wrong with lowering the working age to probably as low as, I'd go down to 13, 14. That kids can work hard labor at age 13, 14. They still get an education, but I was driving trucks, tractors at age 13. I was fueling up things at age 13. I was on a farm, and I'm nowhere close to some real farmers today. But you talk to real farmers today, like, they were working hard. They knew how to do real things, real stuff, probably way before age 13. I think the first time I was pulled over by the cops, I was 11. I think people today have no clue. Like, how many people have changed their own tire? If you haven't changed your own tire, like, you haven't lived. How many people here have changed your own oil? How many people here have baked their own cake? I've done all those things. Would you recommend a 20-year-old to become a jack of all trades or a master of one? If you had to choose one or the other, it's a jack of all trades. Because once at 20, if you put your finger in a bunch of stuff, you can figure out what you really love. And then by age 30, you can then become a master of one. You're welcome. I was driving hay trucks at 13, 14, and I'm female. Oh, that's so attractive. Male bead. Careful, I'm a married man, but I mean, you got my heart aflutter. Female hay truck driver. Whoa. That is sexy. Now, if you tell me, Mel, that it was a double shifter truck, you know, like two gear shifts. If that was the hay truck, I mean, you got my respect. I had to drive one of those, a 5-ton, 3-ton double shifter. I'm starting to sound like an old man. I am an old man. I'm sounding like what I am. Yes, my answer changes at 30. Is there any other kind? What? You only have one gear stick? Oh, you're a wuss of a man. Okay, let me really ruffle some feathers. But Mel, if you were a 13-year-old today and you were driving hay trucks, there'd be pressure for you to say you were born in the wrong body. Am I right or am I right? No, you're just a tomboy woman who loved the smell of hay in the morning. But you're still all woman, right? Don't answer that. Yes, sir, I'm all woman. This is so much fun. $20 minutes, Uber. See? Uber Shizer didn't need to call an Uber. Changed his tire, reconnected the camper, 20 minutes, back on the road. And the thing is, women today, I think, still appreciate and desire a man like me and Uber. I mean, a man who can actually do stuff. A man who's not scared to get his hands dirty. I mean, even if genuinely curious is in live stream chat right now, and she leans pretty hard left. She has real compassion for people and wants more government subsidies and stuff. But I'll tell you the truth. She desires a conservative man. Am I right? Genuinely curious? She wants a real man who can do stuff. A man that can go on the shotgun. A man that can put his hands into dirty toilet water and fix the toilet. A man that can fix the car when it breaks down. Knows where the terminals, the red goes on the terminals and when the black when charging. I mean, genuinely curious is looking for a younger version of me. That's why she's here. My son is 17. Just wait a few years, genuinely curious. Yeah, that's what I was getting at, Uber. Hey, Jamie's here. We got at least 2 real women here now. This live stream is now complete. Ladies just want a handyman with the paycheck of a software engineer. Yeah. See? Look at this. Genuinely Curious is laughing. Tears coming to her eyes because she knows what I'm saying is true. She disagrees with me politically, but there's something inside her that is reaching out for what I have to offer. Now, she knows, rightfully so, that she can't have it in me, but she views me as a template of what she needs in her life. Hey, Genuinely Curious, you saw Nathan. He's a good-looking guy. Let me do some work on him. I'll mold him in my image, and then you can marry him. Oh, no, he's dating a doctor right now. Well, Nathan, break that off. I'll hook you two up. That's okay, Mason Dry. It's not too late for you to become a real man. Hilariously not true. Ah. Your fingers say no, but your heart says yes. No woman wants this lovey-dovey, compassionate, romantic type of guy. No. You want a protector. You want a provider. You want a sane, stable hunk of a man. You're getting married in October. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. What's he like? Do you think you could have been an engineer? Yeah, it depends on what type of engineer, but I think I could have. The reason why I went into chemistry is because my uncle, the one who passed away in 2020, was a PhD in chemistry. But if I were to do it all over again, I would have not gotten 3 degrees. I would have stopped at 1. Started working much sooner. See, Mel married a fighter pilot. A real man. A man who can take, 6 G's while eating a bag of nachos. Most of the men here would faint compared to Mel Bede's husband. I just asked my wife, and she said she prefers the protector over romantic. I thought she'd say the opposite. See, Daniel, I know your wife. I was going to say, no, that's going too far. No. I think most liberal women, most left-leaning women, not all, but most, desire a conservative man. So if you're a left-leaning man, you might be good for a one-night stand, but you're not long-term marriage material. Sorry, the truth hurts. He's a science teacher. We have delightful... Oh, come on. You have delightfully egalitarian relationship? I am quite disgusted by the idea of dating an outspokenly conservative man. I should find out who your fiance is and send him a MAGA hat and ask him to wear it on your next date. See how you react. Test your relationship. I probably could have gone for electrical engineer, because that's like physics in practice. What age level does your fiance teach? Curious. You said he's a science teacher? Does he work with kids with crayons or with pen and paper? Yeah, she likes a man who wears scarves. No, 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 no. A man who wears scarves, no. That's a no-no. Like if my own son came home one day and says, "Dad, I'm trans," I'd be okay with it. But if he came home wearing a scarf, he'd be out the door. Seventh grade. I tell you, Hotel Yugoslavia, I'm telling you the truth. This is from Curb Your Enthusiasm. It's a show here in the US. I don't know if you've ever seen it. But here's my advice to left-leaning liberals. There's some of your friends you really don't like. They're not really your friends. And they ask you to go for lunch. They ask you to do this and that. And this applies to young ladies as well. If there's a liberal friend you don't really like and you don't want to spend time with, take my advice. Buy a mega hat, and when you go meet them, wear it. They'll never ask you again. Problem solved. You're welcome. Women do want the lover. Look at Pete Davidson and Johnny Depp. Yeah, but the reason why they like Pete Davidson, even though he looks like an alien, is because he's funny. And the reason why they like Johnny Depp is because he's the bad boy. Well, Pete Davidson's the bad boy too. But they like the character of Johnny Depp. They like the pirate's character. Oh, I can respect that if he runs marathons. What's his best time? If your fiance can run a full marathon in under 3 hours, 30 minutes, I will endorse your marriage. If he can't run a marathon in under 3:30, may I suggest you keep looking. Actually, it's good to marry a marathon runner because odds are he'll die at 55 or 60 being really fit, but just have a heart attack, and then you get to inherit all his wealth. Did Forrest ever respond to the video made of him? No, he never did. I'm a pariah in that world. This is getting too rough right now. Oh, wow. Matthew Nitz can run under 3:30. Yes. Good for you, Matthew. My best time, I never did a full marathon, but my best time and a half was 1:28. Which is pretty good. Thanks, Jamie. Speaking of running, I ran, for the first time in a long time, I ran 12 miles the other day. And I finally said, "Lady, take your purse." Thanks, Yugoslavia. But that's part of the reason why I needed knee surgery. Because I could run so fast. There's so many steps your bones can take. Your ligaments can take. It was under 7 min miles. I think 650 or something. Thanks, Dusty Dud. I would donate to the stream, but it would be inflationary. Oh, don't worry, I'll be heavily taxed. Poof. I'll put timestamps in later, so if you came late, just wait a day, and then you can rewatch what's interesting.